ladies and gentlemen, we recently finished a different custom mail-in tournament, so let's go right into another one. Hey everybody, welcome to day number 1 of the custom mail-in tournament, Mario edition. Here comes the first group of the whole thing. Number 4, Boondocks at 81.68, I think that's grams. Number 25, Bartolo at 56.29 grams. Number 30, Hollywood Harmeyer at 102.88 grams. Number 1, Dusty Miles, 112.43 grams. I'm pretty sure that the small g is grams because I live in America, like the US, so I don't really fully grasp the metric system. In any case, as we begin this very first race, Dusty Miles already has a lead. As we've established in previous tournaments, if you get an early lead, that often can help you for the rest of the race, because then the rest of the racers will have to spend a good chunk of that time trying to catch up to you. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But Dusty Miles is just gradually expanding that lead, going into the final stretch, and they start to skid a little bit, but it just does not matter. And now they set the time to beat 14.85, and look at that! Boondocks comes out of nowhere and takes second place from Bartolo. And we already have a non-finisher. Where did they get stuck is the question. Oh, they got stuck on that turn. It looks like that blue Gengar there might have been a little top-heavy going around that turn, but it could very well be wrong. And I like the creativity behind some of these vehicles, because just because it's a quote-unquote Mario Kart tournament, you don't necessarily have to use Mario characters. In fact, only one of them in this group is. One's from Pokemon, one's from The Simpsons, and one is a Lego. Right now, Dusty Miles does have the first win. 2 more, and they will automatically stamp their way into the final round. The way that car is built and the way that driver is racing, they have no issue going around those turns whatsoever. They seem to be able to keep relatively straight, which is a must on tracks like these, because if you start spinning around or skidding sideways, you can lose a lot of speed and somebody else might take advantage of that. But so far, Dusty Miles has no trouble, and they finish with a 14.43 this time, which is even better. And again, we have a non-finisher. What is going on? Is it... Yeah, it's the same one. I don't know if that little nut was placed on the back to keep Gengar from falling over, but I'm kind of surprised to see that. It's not every day that something like that happens. But Dusty Miles does have 2 wins. Hollywood Harmeyer has yet to finish. I hope they do at least once for their sake. But Dusty Miles, they just need 1 more win, and they're guaranteed a spot in the final round. Meanwhile, Hollywood is falling behind really quickly. I don't know if it's because of how big Gengar is, but I'm sure that's not exactly helping them either. But Dusty Miles so far has had little to no competition. And as I say that, they do skid a little bit, but they quickly correct themselves, go around that turn into the final stretch right before the finish line, and they are automatically guaranteed to be in the finals. Finishing a little bit slower this time with a 15.13. But currently, Dusty does have the fastest time, still hasn't lost a race. And Hollywood is still stuck? Oh my goodness, it seems like they're getting further and further back on the track each time. I think there's something about just how big Gengar is compared to the vehicle they're driving that's slowing them down significantly, to the point where getting around turns and even some straight paths apparently are a struggle. But Dusty does have an automatic spot in the finals. They're just trying to stay undefeated at this point. Meanwhile, Boondocks and Bartolo are fighting for second place. One of them will move on, the other will stay back and not move on. Right now, Bartolo has 8 points and Boondocks has 3. So in order for Boondocks to move on, he will need to finish in front of Bartolo. Even if they have to go into a tiebreaker, if he doesn't finish before Bartolo does, Boondocks is out. But Dusty Miles once again finishes, has the sweep, and remains undefeated for now. And Bartolo finishes in second, so he will be the one moving on. Boondocks close behind. And Hollywood Harmeyer falls off the track somehow. I mean, at least they're still smiling. That's definitely a plus, I suppose. Man, the first group of the whole tournament, and we already have one sweep. One racer who is not finished at all. And the two moving on, neither one of them are Mario characters. They just happen to be, or at least one of them at least, is driving a Mario Kart vehicle. I'm not sure about the other one. But in the second group, we have number 8, Daniel MG at 60.37 grams. Number 7, Spidey Sarmiento, 73.40 grams. Number 32, Racer Red at 52.23 grams. And number 5, Matt McNear at 63.27 grams. In this group, we have 2 Mario characters. And I am definitely noticing that this Lego Luigi, if you will, is spending the whole time giving the infamous death glare that Luigi is known for in Mario Kart 8. And somehow Spider-Man found his way onto the track. I'm really loving the creativity behind some of these vehicles and the racers driving them. So props to you, to anyone really, that does that. And let's see, it looks like Spidey might have the lead, Racer Red close behind him, but Racer Red loses all that speed around that last turn, and now Spidey has no issue finishing in first with a slower time, albeit. But it looked like Daniel MG finished in second, and then Racer Red in third. Now, I don't know if I'm fascinated or slightly disturbed by the fact that Luigi's face is on the front of that vehicle for Daniel MG, but again, props for creativity. It looks like they kind of fuse 2 different cars together. I'm not sure if that's going to help them or hinder them. But so far, they did finish in 4th, so we'll see. In the second race, who has the current lead? It looks like Racer Red might, but here comes Matt McNear, trying to finish better than second. The lane splits, and he's right next to Racer Red, but it looks like he somehow lost a little bit of speed almost instantly. But he is keeping up with the other 2. And it looks like somebody was spinning around back there. It looks like it was Spidey. And now Matt McNear will take the win. And second place was going to be Racer Red, but he came to a complete stop. And Spidey found his way around him. Meanwhile, Daniel MG tried to push his way through, but because he bumped into Racer Red, neither one of them finished. And now that look of death has turned into a look of shame, looking away from the camera. Wonderful driving by Spidey to get around him, because that window is not very big to push through. And these aren't the fastest racers, but they're certainly some of the more interesting ones I've seen. Yeah, that death glare along with Luigi's face on the front of the vehicle, holy cow. I'm not even sure what to call some of these vehicles, because some of them are a mixture of them. We're getting into this third race now. No one has a guaranteed spot if they win this one. But Racer Red, after not finishing, definitely wants to make something happen here, and so far he's able to do that, but that pipe frame just causes him to lose all that speed, and he blocks. I think that was Daniel MG, who then fell to his side. And now Spidey, as long as he finishes, is in a really good position to move on. And he does that. Will anyone else finish? We had a bit of a traffic jam before. Yup, here comes, it looks like Matt McNear, and somehow Racer Red stayed on his feet, or his wheels, I suppose, and was able to finish, but Matt McNear, because they bumped into Racer Red when he was at a stop, was unable to finish. I would love to know how Racer Red kept going, because it looked like they were not going to be able to make it around that turn, even after they got bumped into. These are some wacky races already, and this is only day 1. For now, though, Spidey Sarmiento, and I believe it's Matt McNear, that currently has the best odds of moving on alongside him. While Daniel MG and Racer Red have 4, Matt McNear has 8. So they would need Matt McNear to not finish again, and they would need to finish in order to even have a shot at that. And here comes Racer Red. Can he stay straight this time? He does, but Spidey is right on his tail trying to find a way around him like he did before. And they get into this last turn. What will happen? Racer Red does have the lead. Can he hold on to it? He starts spinning around. And he does finish in first. It was really close. But I think he still got the win there, and Matt McNear finished in second. I'm not sure. Yeah, there's Daniel MG. I think Spidey didn't finish, but, oh no, wait, there he is. Somehow I completely missed that. I guess I was so focused on that close finish that I didn't even notice him. But it looks like Spidey will move on. I'm not sure if Matt McNear is moving on. I think he will. Yes, he will. Racer Red got close to that first place finish, but not close enough. But now we get into the finals and see who among the four that moved on will ultimately be today's winner. I think maybe even the top two will move on, and not just the first place finisher. So even if you don't finish in first, I think you still have a shot. I could be wrong. I say that because our last mail-in tournament that we just had, the top two in each group would move on. Right now, though, Dusty Miles once again has the lead, no one anywhere near them. And Bartolo currently seems to be not too far behind, but not enough to the point where they can catch up unless Dusty Miles slips up a little bit, but he isn't doing that. And he finishes with a 15.12. I don't think that's the fastest time. I think it was in the 14-second mark. Bartolo almost came to a stop, it seems, but Spidey did manage to finish in third. He wasn't able to find his way around that time, which is a slight problem. And it looks like they were really close at least. So Spidey still could pull something off, and Matt McNear didn't even finish. As we get into this next race, yeah, Dusty Miles just seems to be built for speed, and he's got a design in such a way where it doesn't seem like it's really easy for him to spin around. So if you got those two things, you're a surefire bet to move on in most cases. And no one has been able to get even close to Dusty Miles in these races so far. And they are alone as they go into that last stretch before the finish. And they finish in first yet again. 14.69. I'm not sure if that is the fastest time. It's close. But we'll have to see. But Matt McNear, I think that was, once again is on their side. Or at least they didn't finish. At this point, that pretty much knocks their chances out of moving on. But they did at least get past the first round. And so far, Dusty just needs one more win, and they'll move on automatically. So far, Dusty has not lost a race yet, so if we get an undefeated racer already, that'll be absolutely impressive, because we've seen a lot of things happen already in day one, which would be an undefeated racer, a racer who didn't finish, and so many crazy events on the track before the race is even done. Dusty Miles is in front, although I think I saw Bartolo relatively close. And Dusty did swerve slightly, but he does get the win, so Dusty Miles will be moving on. Bartolo skidded across the finish line, and the other two finished not too far behind them. But it's looking pretty good for Dusty and Bartolo as of right now. Yep, Dusty Miles has already stamped his way in. Bartolo is in a really good position to do the same. Matt McNear will need to... I'm sure would love to finish better than last, but the fact that they finished that time is already an improvement. And part of me wants to root for Spider-Man because he honestly is my favorite superhero, which is ironic because I don't do well around actual spiders. But Dusty Miles, going into this next stretch before the final turn, once again, no one has been giving them any competition so far. And Dusty Miles will get another sweep remaining undefeated as they move on to the grand finals. And Matt McNear did at least finish that time, so that definitely is a step up. But Dusty Miles will be moving on with the fastest time and an undefeated streak as of now. I think Bartolo will join him. Let's see. Yep, Bartolo will be joining Dusty Miles in the grand finals, so we already have our first two racers and racing fanatics. Welcome to day number 2 of the Custom Mario Mail-In Tournament. The first day was definitely pretty crazy, and I'm sure day number 2 will be the same. Here is our first group. Number 23, Stump Grinding, 33.72 grams, driven by Sonic. Number 39, Iron Mancito, 62.77 grams, driven by Iron Man. Number 22, Not Purple Yoshi, 44.79 grams. And number 9, Big Mike, 80.94 grams, driven by Wario. I gotta continue commending people on the creativity they have in their custom vehicles and the drivers that race them. I might be a little biased towards the Sonic one personally, because Sonic is my favorite gaming franchise. In fact, the last weekend of February, I will be in a convention in Pensacola where I will be meeting some of the Sonic voice actors, including Jason Griffith and Ryan Drummond, former voices for Sonic and Shadow respectively. In fact, Jason Griffith did both at one point. In any case, in this particular race, Iron Mancito is actually out in front and he takes the first win, with Big Mike not too far behind him, so we might have some competition there. They finished with a 16.69, which is okay, but the fastest time currently is held by Dusty Miles at about 14.43, I think it was. In any case, quote-unquote, Not Purple Yoshi finished in 3rd, and it looks like Stump Grinding will not be finishing. And despite being the fastest thing alive, Sonic gets stuck right near the top of the track. Maybe that's why he normally races on his feet instead of in a vehicle. Some of his racing games were okay, but I'm sure Sonic prefers to be on his feet as opposed to on wheels. We'll see if Not Purple Yoshi can pick up some speed in this next race, and see if Sonic can finish. We've already had one racer that didn't finish at all, and one racer who already has gone through their entire groups without losing a race. Until race number 2, 3 of them are relatively close together, but Sonic is definitely the fastest thing alive, but not the fastest driver alive, it seems. And Big Mike now has the lead. Iron Mancito, was he on his side or was he just sideways? It was kind of hard to tell from that angle. But Big Mike now has a lead where no one seems to be anywhere near him. It looks like he kind of took some of Mario's traditional race car pieces and put it on his own. Although it seems to help because he finished in 1st that time. Will anybody else finish? We see someone coming. It looks like it's Purple, oh sorry, Not Purple Yoshi, who finished in 2nd, but the other 2. Yeah, Iron Mancito somehow wound up backwards and on his side. And Stump Grinding stopped at almost the exact same spot as they did the first time. Yeah, Big Mike finished in 1st, using some of Mario's kart pieces. Here comes Not Purple Yoshi, finishing backwards. I think he did that the first race too, so maybe he just likes to finish with a little bit of style. So here we go into this 3rd race. So far, Stump... Wait, is it grinding or grinding? Because most of the time I've seen grinding, but that might have just been a typo. So for now, because it's an actual word, I will say Stump grinding. But if it's wrong, please feel free to let me know in the comments. Big Mike did have a slight lead, but he somehow just wound up on his side, and Iron Mancito takes full advantage of this and takes the lead. We saw Big Mike do it, and he did not want to do it a second time, so Iron Mancito is now in the lead, heading towards the finish line. He goes backwards, loses some speed. Is anyone going to catch him? No, he does finish in 1st. And Yoshi barely does so himself, which is definitely going to help him in points. Yeah, Big Mike somehow wound up on his side going around that turn, and once again, Stump Grinding seems to have trouble getting past that first or second turn up there. Well, Iron Man Cito and Yoshi at least finished, and that's definitely going to help Yoshi that he finished and Big Mike didn't. So in terms of points, he's actually tied with Big Mike for points, while Iron Man Cito has a slight lead despite that one race he didn't finish. But we will not get any undefeated racers out of this group. But this is definitely some crazy competition. And because not Purple Yoshi and Big Mike are tied for second, Iron Man Cito is basically guaranteed to move on unless he falls behind, and Big Mike is on his side again! I was gonna say whoever finishes in front of the other between Big Mike and not Purple Yoshi will be the one to move on with Iron Man Cito, who looks like he will win this race as well. But Big Mike is out of the race, and if not Purple Yoshi doesn't finish either, then they will have a tiebreaker, but not Purple Yoshi does finish, allowing him to move on in place of Big Mike, who seemed to fall over around the same spot, except this time he tipped the other way. And Stump Grinding just could not get past that turn, it seems. And that's why Sonic Drift sucks. If any of you get that reference, I applaud you. Because it was definitely one of my favorite little cartoons that somebody made on YouTube years ago. But for now, Iron Man Cito and not Purple Yoshi will be moving on to the finals today. Who will join them in the second group? We have number 55, Chris Fork, 62 grams, driven by Forky, I think. Number 15, Blue Line Racing is back at 113.10 grams. Number 16, Mr. Dark, 58.09 grams. And number 3, Try Again Man, at 48.11 grams. That is definitely a different design for, I think that's DK than I'm used to, but it's definitely intriguing. Yeah, Blue Line Racing is in this group. For those that did not see our last mail-in tournament, Blue Line Racing did absolutely phenomenal. Didn't come away with it undefeated, but still did really well. And here they are going up against Chris Fork in this race, and he's trying to find his way around, but Chris Fork keeps blocking him with his nose, and as they get around this last turn, will Blue Line be able to take the lead? So far, no. As we've seen in many tournaments before this, blocking with the front of your vehicle is a popular maneuver, and that may be one of the longest blocks I've ever seen in one maneuver before. So far, no one has been able to beat Dusty Miles' fastest time, but looks like Try Again Man didn't finish here. So far, we've already had 2 racers that have not finished at all, and we're only on day 2. Did Mr. Dark at least finish? Let's see how Try Again Man got stuck up there. And you can see him kind of poking through at the top right of the screen over there as they get into that last turn. And as they get towards the little hill, they just stop there. Yeah, Blue Line Racing has already been denied another chance at an undefeated streak, as that currently belongs now to Chris Fork. I'm kind of fascinated that Forky is able to drive that car without using his hands. But maybe he has some other skill that we don't know about. Right now, though, he and Blue Line Racing are once again competing for the lead. It looks like Blue Line might have it this time, but they are in separate lanes, so that may not help. And Blue Line spun around and lost speed as they went around that turn, allowing Chris Fork to take the lead back for sure. Although I think Blue Line is still in second, so if he finishes in second again, that'll still give him great odds to move on, and he does. Meanwhile, I think that's Mr. Dark coming through that little archway there. I don't know if they'll have enough speed to cross, and they won't. So unless Try Again Man gets down there to push him, he's just staying there, and it doesn't look like he will either. Try Again Man got stuck before the last turn there, so he still has not finished yet. So it looks like for now it'll be mostly between Chris Fork and Blue Line. I'm sure Blue Line would like to get a second ultimate victory in a row, which I personally have not seen before. I'm not sure what DK is sitting in that vehicle. Like that's definitely a bullet bill on the bottom, but I'm not sure what's sticking out of the top of it. And into this third race, Blue Line does have the lead. Chris Fork is trying to close the gap, and they are in the same lane this time, so we'll see if they bump into each other. But Blue Line is just taking it away. He did bump around a little bit. Looks like he was stuck on the railing a little. But Chris Fork saw that and decided to bump him forward a little bit, showing a little bit of good sportsmanship. And Blue Line is going down the hill, currently in first place, and finishes with a win. And Chris Fork will finish in second this time. As for Mr. Dark and Try Again Man, it looks like neither one will be finishing once more. They both got stuck around that last turn, and somehow Mr. Dark just keeps spinning around, ending up backwards. Finishing with a 16.65. That's about 2 seconds slower than Dusty Miles' fastest time. And in the previous tournament, the fastest time, I believe, was a 13.99, which happened to be held by Blue Line. Now you can kind of see the other racers poking in at the top left there, not able to get the speed going around that last turn. It's looking pretty good for Blue Line Racing and Chris Fork, but for Mr. Dark and Try Again Man, not so much. Into this last race, though, Mr. Dark is relatively on par with Chris Fork. I keep wanting to say Forky because that's the character. But a Shy Guy representing Blue Line is still out in front. So even if Blue Line finishes in first and Chris Fork finishes in second, we won't have a tiebreaker since the top two will move on. Blue Line does finish in first. Will Chris Fork finish? There he is. Yeah, he finishes in second, and Mr. Dark didn't actually do too bad in that last race. But Try Again Man will be our third racer. Oh, wait. Oh, I was about to say, it looked like he wasn't going to finish, and then I saw him coming towards the hill, but he stopped himself against the wall before that last hill. It's only day 2, and we've had not 1, not 2, but 3 racers who didn't finish a single race. That is astonishing. But in terms of this particular racer, I think they just need to try again, man. I apologize for the joke, but it was right there. I just had to take it. A very valiant effort, but they just can't seem to get over that last hill. But Chris Fork and Blue Line will be moving on tied at 16 apiece. And here is the final group. Chris Fork and Blue Line are back along with Iron Mancito and not Purple Yoshi. His shoes are purple, but the Yoshi himself is not purple. I only point that out because they're pointing that out. In the first race, Blue Line does have a little bit of a lead, but here comes Chris Fork. Gaining some speed after that turn, and now he has the lead. With Blue Line close behind, and I think Iron Mancito landed on his side after that turn. What's that going to mean for not Purple Yoshi? Blue Line currently has the lead. As they get into that last stretch, he does spin around a little bit. Chris Fork is trying to catch him, but was just barely unable to do so. So Blue Line Racing will have that first win. And not Purple Yoshi was at least able to finish. But I think Iron Mancito was on his side up there. Yes, he was. That is not even the first time that's happened either. Makes you wonder what's going on. Is it the driver doing that? Or is it just the design of the vehicle? Or a combination of the two? Who knows? Alright, so Blue Line has the first win. Chris Fork is in second. Not Purple Yoshi is in third. And Iron Mancito did not even finish. Now, he was able to move on from the first group, despite that happening at least once. So maybe he can do something here that we just don't expect. Blue Line gets around that turn, he does have a decent-sized lead this time around. So as long as he can keep straight, he'll be okay. He was already through that turn before Chris Fork even got there. And here he goes into the home stretch, and he finishes in first yet again. He might still be able to get a sweep here, but he won't be able to go on to the next round undefeated. He did finish with a 14.85 though. That's pretty good. Not even half a second slower than the fastest time we've had so far. And Iron Mancito is on his side again. In almost the exact same spot, I believe. Something about that particular turn has just been devastating for them. But Not Purple Yoshi is keeping himself in this by taking advantage of that. Right now, Blue Line has 10, Chris Fork has 6, and Not Purple Yoshi has 4. So Not Purple Yoshi still has an opportunity. They will need to finish in front of Chris Fork at least once, possibly even twice, in order to be able to move on, which has been a challenge so far because it's mostly been a competition between Blue Line and Chris. But Blue Line has a decent-sized lead right now, and it looked like Chris Fork just barely had the edge over Iron, who I don't think was on his side that time. But Blue Line is going into that last hill, crossing the finish line in first yet again, so he is trying to get that sweep. But because he got the first 3 wins, Blue Line Racing is automatically moving on to the Grand Finals yet again. And here comes Not Purple Yoshi. And I don't think... Oh my goodness, Iron Mancito was on his side once more. That is absolutely crushing, I'm sure. Because they were able to make it through their first group, despite having that happen once, maybe twice. But they've had it happen 3 times in a row now. And they are kept from moving on because of that. Meanwhile, between Chris and Not Purple Yoshi, Chris Fork has the edge with 9 points, while Not Purple Yoshi has 6. So Not Purple Yoshi still technically has a chance to move on, but each race makes it harder and harder to do that. He will have to finish in a position where he gets at least 3 more points. Actually, more than that for Chris Fork, unless Chris Fork doesn't even finish. But so far, he's at least been consistent, finishing in second. As for Blue Line, he gets into that last stretch and gets the sweep. Not an undefeated streak, but he still wins all 4 races of this finals. Now moving on to the Grand Finals alongside Chris Fork. Not Purple Yoshi didn't quite finish the way he wanted to, but he did finish every race. Whereas Iron Mancito, despite moving on from the first group, landed on their side, not finishing at all in every single race in this group. But for now, Dusty Miles will hold on to the fastest time so far. But Blue Line is in the roster once again. I feel kind of bad for Yoshi, because Yoshi is my favorite Mario character, but what can you do? But here is the first 4 racers advancing to the Grand Final. The last couple of days have been absolutely crazy, and I'm sure we'll see more of that today. Here's the first group for day 3. Number 20, Arlo, 106.5 grams. Number 45, the Epic Guys, 44.4 grams. Number 18, Cloaked After Dark, 62.29 grams. And number 34, Bobby Jones, at 63.67 grams. I'm not quite sure what Bowser's sitting in there, but I'm guessing that's just to keep him from falling out. But this is definitely quite the lineup here. It looks like we might have War Machine, Captain Marvel, Mario with boosters based off the Mario movie, it seems, and Bowser sitting in a vehicle that I don't think he normally sits in. But this circles back to how much I love these custom designs, because creativity goes through the roof, and I love seeing what the fans and the racers come up with. In this first race, though, we have Arlo coming into the final stretch all by himself, finishing in first without much of an issue. They do finish with a 15.36 though. That is not too far off from the fastest time. I think that's about a little less than a full second. Speaking of which, I do apologize, ladies and gentlemen. I realize that I completely missed the fact that the fastest time record has been broken in the last video, and that was done by Blue Line. It was very close, but they did break the record by about 0.02 seconds, I believe. So now the fastest time record does belong to Blue Line Racing. In this heat right here, though, Arlo does have the upper hand now that he's finished in first at least once. And they do take a bit of a lead right off the bat. And as I've mentioned in a lot of other videos before, if you get a lead early on, that is definitely going to help you, because then you have an opportunity to block other people from passing you. And the nose block is one of the more popular maneuvers I've seen should it come to that. Right now, though, Arlo has no competition as they go into that little hill, and they go into the finish line, still haven't lost a race. And who's going to finish in second? It looks like it will be Cloaked After Dark. Meanwhile, the Epic guys and Bobby Jones have yet to finish. Here comes Bobby Jones, at least. And they do finish in third, which is a step up from before. But it looks like now the Epic guys will not finish, and they will get stuck before they even get in that last turn. Yeah, that car for Arlo doesn't exactly look the most comfortable. But apparently it's effective, and that's all that matters. Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on with Bobby Jones. Maybe it's the way Bowser's positioned in that vehicle. But it seems like the bigger you are, the less aerodynamic you become, which is definitely a problem in a race of speed. I mean, most races are about speed, but you get what I mean. In this third race, Arlo just needs one more win in order to solidify a spot in today's finals. And so far, they haven't had much competition, so it's looking pretty good for them. It looked like Cloaked After Dark might have been relatively close at first, but Arlo has just been widening that gap as he progresses through this track. Approaching that last hill, and no one's anywhere near them, and they do solidify a spot in today's finals. Cloaked After Dark did try to catch them, but there was just too much of a gap in between them. Here come the other two racers, and it looks like both of them will finish this time. So for the first time in this group, everybody has finished. Now, Arlo is finishing in first each time, but just because you finish in first every time does not mean you are the fastest racer in the entire tournament. Because you could get good times, or rather get good position now, but if your times aren't good, that's going to be trouble for you when you go to face other winners later. Heat number 4. Right now, Arlo is already in today's finals. It's just a matter of who will join him, and the favorite currently leans towards Cloaked After Dark, who has a total of 8 points, whereas the Epic guys has 5 and Bobby Jones has 3. So Bobby Jones really, unfortunately, does not have much of a chance to move on right now. And the Epic guys will need something really good to happen to them, while Cloaked After Dark would need something really bad to happen to them. But right now, Arlo does finish in first yet again, so they keep their hope of being undefeated alive. And Cloaked After Dark finishes in second, so they will be moving on alongside Arlo in today's finals. Valiant effort by the other two, but unfortunately, they fall short, and Bobby Jones stops where the Epic guys stopped before. Yeah, I don't know what's up with the design on that vehicle, but somehow they're able to stay straight for the most part. Maybe it's because the way the weight's distributed, I'm not entirely sure. Physics was never my specialty. So Arlo and Cloaked After Dark will be moving on. Let's see who will join them in the second group. We have number 50, Pinky Vader, at 50.13 grams. Number 12, Here Comes the Mac, at 73.13 grams. Number 54, Yoshi Virus, at 91.46 grams. And number 21, Noob Racing, at 101.81 grams. This is certainly a wide variety, not just in terms of vehicles, but who is driving them. Only one of them is a Mario character. The other three are pretty obscure in all the best ways. As implied by the name Pinky Vader, it is driven by Darth Vader. It looks like we have Ronald McDonald for Here Comes the Mac. And then we have, I think that's Snoopy in the Noob Racing vehicle. Right now, though, Yoshi Virus is out in front, but he skids sideways completely. And he loses so much speed, so the other racers are right behind him now. But two of them crashed into each other and they lost speed. And now Yoshi Virus is able to finish in first as a result. And who finished in second? I want to say it was Noob Racing after all that commotion. Yeah, it definitely was, but look at those times. 17.76. Again, even if you finish in first, you definitely want to pick up the pace if you want to beat some of the other racers later on. Now, I'm not sure what's covering Yoshi. That might be a virus in of itself. Like something similar to what Samus had in some of the Metroid games. But here we go into the second race, and it looks like Pinky Vader now has the lead. And as we get into these lane mergers here, Yoshi Virus is trying to catch Pinky Vader as they get down this straight line, but so far unsuccessful. And Pinky Vader is able to widen that gap just a little bit. And as they go around that last turn, Yoshi Virus is catching up a little bit, but Pinky Vader spins around, and here come more of the racers actually. And Noob Racing does finish in second ahead of Yoshi Virus this time. And I think Pinky Vader does take the win there. And it looks like they, despite spinning, managed to finish slightly quicker. And I am not sure how Ronald McDonald is driving that vehicle with the way he's sitting. Maybe he's driving with his knees, I'm not entirely sure. But this is already quite the commotion. Two people tied for 7 points, one with 6 and one with 2. And it looks like anything can happen with the way they're finishing. As they often say, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. And as they get into the lane merges, they do have a bit of a collision. And now Noob Racing is out in front with Here Comes the Mac in second. But as we get around this turn, Noob Racing is taking off. In that last turn, the other three races are relatively close together, but Noob Racing does take the win, which is very helpful for them. Definitely something that they needed. And it looks like Here Comes the Mac managed to finish in second. It's definitely not a first place win, but if they want to keep any chance up for moving on, that's what they needed to do. It's definitely a start. After we look at the points here, it looks like Noob Racing has 11, Yoshi Virus has 9. I want to say Pinky Vader had 7 or 8? Yeah, Pinky Vader had 8. And Here Comes the Mac now has 5. So that definitely makes things a bit closer now. And here comes the fourth race, and it looks like Pinky Vader had a slight lead, but here comes the Mac. I don't know what they're doing, but it's certainly working for them now. Because they finished in fourth the first couple of times, but now they have a decent-sized lead. They're getting into this next stretch before the final turn, and they are in the lead. Will they be able to hold on to it is the ultimate question. Because the other racers are coming up quick, but Pinky Vader spins around, blocking Noob Racing. And Here Comes the Mac might have gotten what they need to move on. It's going to be awfully close. We'll have to see the scores, because these racers kept going back and forth in terms of who's in what position. We'll have to see. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a tiebreaker actually. Here Comes the Mac did have a valiant effort, but despite that first place win at the end, it was just short. If they had finished better than fourth in at least one of those first two races, they might have moved on. But now that second position alongside Noob Racing will be fought between Pinky Vader and Yoshi Virus. I believe they will race twice, and whoever has the faster time between the two races will be the one moving on. So let's say you have the fastest time in the first race, but then you finish in second in the second race, if that second race time is slower, then the loser of the second race will still move on because they still have the overall faster time. Right now, Pinky Vader does have the advantage here, finishing with a 17.54. So in order for Yoshi to move on, alongside Noob Racing, they will need to finish faster than that here. If they don't, they are out and Pinky Vader will move on. And right now, Pinky Vader does have the lead. And Yoshi Virus will definitely need a miracle at this point. Pinky Vader has spun out a few times already, so maybe that could work to Yoshi Virus's advantage. But so far that hasn't happened, and they're able to stay straight as they go into that last turn, going down the hill. So far, no one anywhere near him. And Pinky Vader will be the one moving on. And Yoshi Virus, as well as they did, they will have their time in this tournament cut short here. They can at least say they fought until the very end in order to move on. So that's definitely something to pat themselves, pat themselves on the back for. But now it's time for the finals. And so far, Arlo is undefeated. So I'm sure they want to keep that alive and be the second racer in this tournament so far to do so. The first one, I believe, was Dusty Miles. Yep, Arlo already has the lead. Noob Racing is trying to keep up with them, but is struggling to do so. And Arlo is on that straight path. And they just keep widening that gap ever so slowly, but surely. They get into that last stretch. Here we go into the... And they do cross the finish line. So they are still undefeated with only 3 races to go to keep that alive. And Pinky Vader blocks Captain Marvel there. I'm sorry, I'm forgetting the racer name. I'll say it correctly in a second. But Noob Racing finished in second. Pinky Vader blocks the other racer from finishing, but in doing so, they themselves won't finish either. Cloaked After Dark. There we go. I am so sorry. But in the fact that 2 of them didn't finish, it definitely helps the 2 that did. And here we go into the second race. Arlo already has the lead. And the other 3 are trying to keep up this time, and so far it looks like they are, at least relatively. But this turn is often a make or break for many racers. And Arlo is able to hold on to that lead. Pinky Vader is trying to catch them. They definitely have a smaller gap, but as I say that, Pinky Vader spins out again, and it looks like they won't even finish this time. And Arlo finishes in first yet again, Noob in second, Cloaked After Dark in third. And yep, Pinky Vader does not finish again. They definitely fought for their position here in the finals, but it looks like any chance they had to move on to the grand finals is already dashed. Arlo just needs one more win. But it's already looking pretty solid considering one of the racers hasn't finished at all, and one of them didn't finish in the first race. So the odds are definitely tipped in their favor. They would need to do something really drastic to make them lose any chance of moving on at this point, because it's practically guaranteed now. But Arlo is holding on to that lead. Pretty much so far, anytime they grab that lead, they don't lose it. Going into that turn, and no one's close. Going down the hill towards the finish line, and Arlo will be moving on. And now it's just a matter of trying to stay undefeated. And Pinky Vader does try to block Captain Marvel. I keep forgetting that name. I am so sorry. But they tried to block again, and it just did not work. Because they both finished that time. Which is definitely a vast improvement, but at this point, it's pretty much all for naught. Because even Noob Racing has a big lead in points against both of them. And in order for either one of them to move on, the only hope lies in Cloak After Dark. But in order for that to happen, Noob Racing would need to actually, no, I stand corrected. For some reason, I thought Noob Racing had 8 points. They have 9. So both Arlo and Noob Racing will already be guaranteed to move on, and the other two will be cut short. And right now, Arlo is trying to stay undefeated. They go down that last dip, and they will. We now have 2 undefeated racers. And now Noob Racing doesn't finish, but at this point, it doesn't matter, because they already had more than enough points to cover for what happened for the other racers. So it will be Noob Racing alongside Arlo moving on into the grand finals. So now, ladies and gentlemen, we have 6 racers for day number 4 of the Custom Mario Mail-In Tournament. We're almost halfway there through the main part of the tournament, but first we gotta get through these 2 groups, and here's the first one. Number 52, Feroshi at 44 grams. Number 40, Charlie Racing at 69.56 grams. Number 27, Shih Tzu Squinky at 39.31 grams. And number 31, T-Ball at 79.62 grams. Once again, I gotta commend the creativity. Some of the racers are modified, some of the cars are modified. And I'm not sure what's going on with Squinky there, but either Mario's wearing a hat or that's a half Mario, half Shih Tzu driver, who is apparently tall enough that their hair hit the starting gate at the very beginning of the race. As we get into this race, though, Charlie Racing does have a lead, but here comes Feroshi. I think that vehicle is called the Circuit Special, but I'm not entirely sure. Cars are not my specialty. But Charlie Racing does get the first win, so if anyone's going to be undefeated out of this group, it's going to be them. Meanwhile, Feroshi barely finishes, and Shih Tzu Squinky right behind them, and here comes T-Ball, so everybody did at least finish this time. I am definitely wondering, though, how some racers are able to fuse separate cars together into one. Although I do love when that happens, because it creates a new vehicle, and we get to see whether it's a good design or bad, and so far, whether it is good or bad, I love the combination. But so far, Charlie has the lead, and I'm not sure what Baby Luigi is holding on to there. I think that was a steering wheel. So I'm not sure what they're connected to allow them to steer, but apparently it's working. And I also want to deliver a quick apology, ladies and gentlemen, if my commentary was a little bit iffy in the last video, because as I recorded that, I just had gotten off a plane a few hours before, so I was definitely a bit tired. In fact, the same can be said for this one, so hopefully, now that I'm a bit more warmed up, I will have at least improved a little bit. But for now, Charlie Racing does take the second win. They will not have the fastest time, which is still held by Blue Line Racing at 14.41. Shih Tzu almost didn't finish at all, but they did, and it was Feroshi that didn't finish. The other two managed to pass him after Feroshi just did not have the speed to be able to finish. I don't know if it's because they were going backwards and then spinning sideways going down that hill, but they just did not have the speed to move forward enough. And I'll have to get a better look at Yoshi's face, because it looks like he might have some sort of... I want to say that's the smile often found on Bowser Jr.'s bid thing, but I could very well be wrong about that. It could be based on something else and I just don't realize it. But now in this third race, Charlie Racing and Feroshi are side by side, and they are in the same part of the track, so we'll be able to see how close they are to each other. Feroshi is currently behind him, and Charlie Racing is trying to keep that lead, because they just need one more win to move on to the grand finals, or rather today's finals, and keep that dream of being undefeated alive. Feroci was right on his tail, but they spun around and lost so much speed going around that turn. And Charlie Racing himself lost a lot of speed as they go down the hill. But thankfully they had enough of a lead that they still managed to finish in first. And Feroci almost didn't finish in second, as Shih Tzu Squinky finished right behind them. I'm not sure if Feroci will face forward here, but I definitely want to get a better look at the front of his head. So it looks like Charlie Racing will already be moving on. And the favorite to join him, I believe, currently is in the favor of Shih Tzu Squinky. Yep, it is, because they have 7 points. However, Feroci has 6. So it could happen to either one of them still. T-Ball still technically has an outside chance, but they will definitely need to work for it. Meanwhile, Charlie Racing is holding onto that lead, trying to stay undefeated. And Feroci is in a separate lane this time. If Feroci can finish in second, we might have Feroci move on instead of Shih Tzu, but we will see. Charlie Racing remains undefeated as they go into the finals. And it looked like Feroci was in front of Shih Tzu for most of that race, but they lost that. And if it wasn't for T-Ball, he wouldn't have finished at all. So it looks like Shih Tzu Squinky will be joining Charlie in today's finals, and Charlie will remain undefeated as they go into the finals today. And so far, only 2 racers have done that, going into the grand finals. And the fastest time is still held by Blue Line Racing. Charlie Racing has a sweep. They just want to be undefeated now. But for now, we'll have to see how the second group does, which consists of number 14, 41-14 Racing at 110 grams, number 35, Speedy McGee at 66.55 grams, number 29, Hammer at 48.37 grams, number 42, Reno Racing at 50.16 grams. I'm not sure what the weight limit is, but 1 or 2 of these racers are definitely very close. And it looks like DK, this is the version of DK from the movie. And I think this might be the first group we've had that consists of entirely Mario characters. Most of them either had 1 or 2 or possibly 3. But we rarely ever see all 4 be Mario characters. That being said, look at the designs that these people are making. I am absolutely intrigued. I would personally love to see some sort of design contest come out of this, because these are amazing. But we do have a non-finisher in this first race, and who is it? It looks like it was Hammer. Meanwhile, the other 3 racers did finish. So we'll have to see how that comes into play for the rest of this group. Yeah, I think Speedy McGee looks... Actually, no, Hammer looks the most normal. While the others are definitely modified to some degree. I'm not sure what Yoshi has around his neck, but hopefully it's not choking him out too much. Especially if he makes a sudden stop anywhere. But for now, in this second race, Reno Racing does have a good-sized lead. But here comes 41-14, who wants to stay undefeated, but they have to finish in front of Reina to do so. And so far, they're struggling to make that happen. And Reina goes into that last turn, currently holding the lead. Will they be able to dethrone 41-14 early on? They will! They lost a bit of speed right near the finish line, but they had enough to cross it. So we will have no undefeated racers out of this group. And this time we have 2 non-finishers, one of them being Hammer. And Speedy McGee was the other one, and they were in the same part of the track, and they both stopped around the same spot. Getting stuck before that last turn seems to be a common occurrence. Race number 3, after both of those racers didn't finish, things are definitely in favor of 4114 and Reina, who both, I believe, have 8 points here. And the only other person with points is Speedy McGee with 2. So it's getting much, much harder for Speedy McGee to even move on, let alone Hammer. And if Reina and 4114 finish at all, it'll make it significantly harder. And as I'm saying this, Reina actually gets stuck, and there goes 4114 taking advantage and getting the win. And somehow, Reina was able to get enough speed to stay finishing in 2nd place, and Hammer was able to finish this time, but the same cannot be said for Speedy McGee, who this time got stuck on the turn before the last one. So things are definitely not looking good for Hammer or Speedy McGee, who only have 2 points each after the 3rd race. If 4114 and Reina are guaranteed, both of them, to move on. It's not often you see 2 racers guaranteed to move on by the 3rd race, but it's certainly happening here. So here we go into the last race now. No one is undefeated, and the 2 slots are already guaranteed. So this is more of a victory lap for Reina and 41. Right now, Reina actually has a decent-sized lead. No one anywhere close to them as they go into that last turn. And in that last dip, no competition whatsoever. Reina gets the win, and 41 finishes in 2nd, so I believe they will be tied. But because they are the top 2, they will both move on, and we will not need a tiebreaker. And Speedy McGee falls just short of the finish line. But what kind of time did Reina have? It was a 16.56. So definitely better than some of the previous races we've had in the last couple of groups or so. But it's still not quite up to the standard of the fastest time yet. But now we move on to the finals. So far we have 1 undefeated racer, but we still have all wonderful designs. Right now, Reina has a slight lead, and 41 is right next to them. Charlie Racing, the 1 undefeated racer in this group right now, is trying to take back the lead. Here he comes, actually. Right next to 41, he's trying to block him and make him lose momentum, and it looks like he might have done that. But he lost a lot of momentum himself. And now Reina has a decent chance to stop Charlie from being undefeated. But they are actually right on his tail. Here comes Charlie trying to get the undefeated streak alive and was unable to do so. 3 racers finished relatively close together, and Shih Tzu Squinky finishes in 4th. I do love that name, though. I will give him that. But that was quite the finish between those 3. And I think Reina was able to finish in 1st, stopping the 1 undefeated racer we have for today. So Charlie was at least able to get a sweep. That is something he can hold on to. It's just a matter of what he does in this group. Will he be able to move on or not? So far, he struggled just a little bit. But they did finish in 2nd, so they are keeping their chances alive right now. And 41-14 and Reina are relatively even as they get into the lane mergers here. And Charlie is trying to keep up with them. Meanwhile, 41-14 is trying to take the lead back from Reina. It looks like they might have done that, though not by much. In that last turn, their lead expands, and 41-14 will finish in 1st yet again, like they did earlier, and Reina is trying to finish in 2nd, and they do, passing in front of Charlie to stop him from passing him. Yet there's one thing that's been relatively consistent with Reina and 41 is that they keep going back and forth between who finishes in 1st and who finishes in 2nd. Although it looks like 41 actually finished in 3rd. What am I talking about in that 1st race anyway? Now in terms of points, Reina has 8, 41 has 7, Charlie has 5, and Shih Tzu only has 2. By the way, I don't know if Shih Tzu is the correct pronunciation, but I'm trying not to say it the other way that people normally do, because it certainly sounds like a certain word if you're not careful. Reina does have a slight lead, I think, but they are kind of going back and forth with 41 right now. And 41 slingshots himself down that last hill, and they finish in first yet again, something they absolutely needed. Meanwhile, Reina finishes in second again, Charlie in third, and Shih Tzu finishing in fourth, so it looks like they will be out now. Even if it wasn't certain before, it certainly is at this point. I definitely love how tall that racer is, though. I will give him that much. And yes, I'm counting the hair in that. But now things are looking pretty good for 41 and Reina. Because 41 now has 12, Reina has 11, and Charlie has 7. So they still technically have an opportunity, but they will need to pull off an upset here, and so far they haven't been able to do so. Reina does have a lead here, and Charlie's actually in second right now. If they can pass up Reina, they might be able to pull something off. But so far, Reina just has a big enough lead to the point where it's not really possible. So Reina would need to spin out or something, but they don't do that, and they finish in first yet again. And while 41-14 does finish in third, I think they'll still move on alongside Reina. We'll check the points to be absolutely certain, but that's what I'm going with. And a 16.38 is definitely respectable, but they'll definitely want to pick up the pace in later races. Here come the points, and yes, Reina and 41 will be moving on. And now half of the roster for the grand finals is complete. Thank you all. Halfway through the custom Mario mail-in tournament, and now it's time for the second half, starting with today, day number 5. Let's meet our first group for the day. Number 40, Briandon, 30.89 grams. Number 37, Rebel Racing, 80.69 grams. Number 13, Jesse, 33.93 grams. And number 51, Noid, 88.63 grams. This is our first group. We'll see the second group race later on. And this is where they will start, in heat number 1. By the way, once again, everybody, if I mispronounce a name, please let me know how to properly pronounce it, in case they move on, so I know how to say it correctly in the future. It is a little bit hard to keep track of everything as well, especially in my personal life right now, so I'm sorry if I say something wrong or miss something important. But as we get into this first race, Rebel Racer is out in front, and it looks like Ahsoka is driving that vehicle. It might have 2 engines or something on the back. I'm not sure how that works, but it seems to be working for her. Going down that last hill, no one anywhere around them. And they finish with a 16.9, which is actually not too bad, but it's not too great either, because I believe the fastest time we have is still 14.41, held by Blue Line Racing, who held the record for the fastest time in the last tournament as well. So if we finished in second, it looks like it was Jesse, and I think that's called the Sneaker. Again, I have trouble keeping track of everything. And that character I definitely recognize, and I don't know if Noid is their name or something similar, but I have seen them before. The Rebel Racer has the first win, so if anyone's going to be undefeated in today's races, it's going to be them. Or somebody in the second group. We'll see later. Noid is actually kind of tall, like one of our previous racers, but I don't think they're tall enough to the point where they're hitting the overhead archway there. And in race number 2, Rebel Racer is out in front yet again. Jesse is trying to keep on their tail this time. In the lane merger, though, it looks like Rebel is able to keep that lead going. Something about that straight path there is often a make or break for some of these racers, because they are able to either slow down or just launch themselves forward like a slingshot a lot of the time. But Rebel Racer makes full advantage of the lead that they have, and they win again, finishing around the same amount of time too. Noid finishes in second this time. And then there's Briandon, but where is Jesse? Looks like they got stuck. And it was before the final turn, which is a popular area for racers who don't finish to end up stopping. But Noid did finish in second this time, so that may help them quite a bit, especially since Jesse didn't finish at all. Let's look at the overall score. We have 3 for Jesse and Briandon, 5 for Noid, and 10 for Rebel Racer. And Rebel only needs one more win to automatically move on to today's finals. But they will have to beat everybody first. And so far, they're able to do that, and they're already expanding their lead by quite a bit. When you're moving so fast that all of the other racers are off camera, then you're probably going to be fine unless you spin out or something, which has happened before. So it's, as they often say, it's not over till it's over. And we did see Jesse briefly a couple times, but I'm not sure if it's going to be enough. And Rebel Racer once again spins around at the end, finishes in first though, so they will automatically move on. The question is, who will finish in second? It looks like it'll be Noid again. And there comes Briandon. For some reason, Jesse is getting stuck all of a sudden. They started off really well, and somehow they end up losing all their speed right before the last turn. And now they have 2 non-finishes, which is very hurtful towards their score, and greatly decreases their chances of moving on. Especially since Noid now has finished in second twice. And Briandon close behind them, no less. And now Noid has 8, Jesse still has 3, Briandon has 5. So it's very difficult at this point for Jesse to have a chance to move on. In order for that to happen, they would need to win this next race while Noid doesn't finish at all, and then he would have to win in a tiebreaker. That is a very unlikely set of circumstances, especially since Rebel hasn't lost a race yet. And it looks like they will keep that alive and possibly be our next undefeated racer. We haven't had any in a decent amount of time, so this could be a game changer here. And they do finish in first, so they are, for now, remaining undefeated. They just have 4 more races in front of them today in order to keep it that way. Excuse me. There comes Noid. I think somebody finished before Noid did, other than Rebel. And who didn't finish? It was Briandon this time. Briandon got stuck where Jesse normally does. Does that mean did Jesse actually finish? Yep, here they come. Jesse did put in a valiant effort to try and keep in this game, but unfortunately, I don't think it's going to be enough. Because not only did they only finish in second, but Noid finished, period. So it looks like Noid will be moving on. And that is the case. With only 10 points, Noid was able to move on alongside Rebel, who is currently undefeated. Let's see who will join them in the finals in the second group. Number 16, Ultra Quest, 85.83 grams, or 83 grams. Number 47, Stitchify, 38.73 grams. Number 36, Beavis and Butthead Racing, 109 grams. That seems close to the limit. And number 41, Wakanda Forever, at 51.12 grams. Now this is definitely interesting. No one in this group seems to be a Mario character at all. A couple of them are characters owned by Disney, but no Mario characters seemingly. Right now, Beavis and Butthead are out in front, and I'm not sure if only one of them is driving the actual vehicle or both of them are trying to. I'm not entirely sure. But it looks like we have at least seen a racer take notes from Arlo, as Beavis and Butthead seem to be strapped closer to the front of that vehicle, which may work in their favor if it worked for Arlo. And they do have the first win, and they did finish a little bit quicker than the first group did. Here comes Ultra, barely crossing the finish line, There's Wakanda Forever. But where is Stitchify? They are up there and they are sideways. So we already have a non-finisher in this group, which is definitely going to hurt, especially for all the Stitch fans out there. I being one of them. Or I am one of them. I am so sorry. I am very tired. But yeah, I gotta once again point out the wonderful creativity on a lot of these vehicles. Because it is called a Mario custom tournament. But they take full advantage of the custom part and make all these wacky vehicles or have non-Mario characters racing. And it is quite entertaining, if for nothing else, the creativity alone. In race number 2, however, Beavis and Butthead are once again out in front. And so far, no one has been able to get too close to them, which of course I'm sure they would prefer. And that, around that last turn, down the hill, no one anywhere close, and they are staying straight, so they will finish in first yet again. This time with a 16.14, that is definitely better. Wakanda Forever finishing... Actually, no, that was Ultra Quest, and then Wakanda Forever. And Stitchify still can't finish. And they can't get around that last turn. Once again, a popular place for non-finishers to stop. But you definitely, and obviously, do not want to be a non-finisher if you want to move on. Any non-finish greatly decreases your chances of progressing. Now, Beavis and Butthead so far have finished in first both times. Actually, everybody has had the same results in the first 2 races so far. So let's see how race number 3 goes, and Beavis and Butthead are already way out in front for a starting position. And they're already through that first turn and quickly pulling away. And the lane merger, let's see if anyone's closing in. No, they are getting further and further away from everybody else. They are now heading into the path towards the last turn. They do swerve sideways a little bit, but quickly correct themselves. That being said, maneuvers like that can make you lose a lot of speed. So you want to be very careful anytime you skid sideways. But they do finish in first yet again, so they will be moving on to today's finals. And it looks like Ultra Quest finishes in second yet again. And Wakanda Forever is not finishing, it seems. And neither is Stitchify, so let's see if we can find them. There's Wakanda Forever stuck right before that last turn. Yet another example. And Stitchify is somehow stuck on a downward slope. I'm not quite sure what caused that to happen. They might have gotten stuck on the railing. But it's not often you see someone get stuck while heading downwards. You'd think gravity would work in your favor, but I guess it didn't happen there. But it looks like so far, the 2 moving on will be Beavis and Butthead Racing alongside Ultra Quest. Because the other 2, they don't even have enough points or any points, as the case may be, in order to catch up to even Ultra at this point. So it looks like it will be Beavis and Butthead alongside Ultra Quest moving on. It's just a matter of how many points can they get overall. But look at this, Stitchify was doing relatively well up until that turn, and then they just went sideways and all their speed was lost. Which is an absolute shame, because it looked like they were going to try and end on a high note. But then in the end, it looks like the results will stay the same for them. And Ultra Quest finishes in second once more. Will Wakanda Forever finish? No. Stitchify didn't get much further than when we last saw them, and Wakanda Forever got stuck right before the last hill, which we've seen a couple times happen a couple times before. I am so sorry. Let's see, how did they stop? Did they hit the wall? It looks like their back end might have caught something, and then they went sideways and hit the wall and stopped immediately. But we have our finalists, so let's see what happens now. We have Rebel Racer and Beavis and Butthead, 2 racers that haven't lost a race yet, which means at least one of them will not have a chance to be undefeated going forward. Possibly both of them, but we will see. Right now, Beavis and Butthead are out in front, but Rebel is closing in fast. They are trying to keep this a close race. But Beavis and Butthead has been shown time-wise to be just a little bit faster. But as I say that, Beavis and Butthead skids sideways, and Rebel Racer finds an opening, takes it, and now they're spinning sideways, and it keeps going back and forth, and Beavis and Butthead ultimately take the win. That is what I would call a race. Both racers skid sideways. Both racers take advantage of their opportunities. It's just that Beavis and Butthead had the latter one, and they ultimately won because of it. Meanwhile, Ultra Quest finished in third, and Noid did not finish at all. Look at that, it was relatively close throughout. But Beavis and Butthead will take the win and keep their hope of being undefeated alive. Rebel Racer, that being said, could still move on as we have the top two moving on in each regular finals. They will just have to be relatively consistent with Beavis and Butthead in order for that to happen. In race number 2, Beavis and Butthead once again take an early lead, but Rebel Racer is trying to keep up with them. That being said, they do go into different sections of the course this time, and won't meet up again until the lane merger at the very end. Beavis and Butthead do have a slight lead, but here comes Rebel Racer trying to pass them, and it looks like they do. And now they're going into the last stretch before the final turn, and they are relatively even, so let's see who takes the lead as we get into the last stretch. It is Rebel Racer, but they do skid sideways. This time though, Beavis and Butthead were not able to pass them, and Rebel Racer takes the win this time, so no one in today's video will come out of it undefeated. Very close, but not enough. But now Rebel and Beavis and Butthead are tied for first, and I believe 8 points each. This time everybody did finish, but it looks like it'll mostly be between Beavis and Butthead alongside Rebel Racer. I will say though, I do like the character design on Ultra Quest. And Noid, I still can't place where I've seen that character before. I believe they were a mascot for something, but I could be wrong. Race number 3 though, Beavis and Butthead do have a slight lead, and they are sharing the same lane as Rebel Racer. The question is, will they be able to catch them this time? It is relatively close, but so far Beavis and Butthead still have the lead going into the last turn. And I don't think Rebel will be able to catch them as they spin around yet again. So Beavis and Butthead now has the lead in points again. And here come the other two. Ultra Quest almost actually finished in last that time. It's not every day you see a close competition. Usually there's one racer that stands out from the other three, or just everybody just doesn't do that well. But we actually have a very intense competition between Beavis and Butthead and Rebel Racer here. So let's see if Rebel can pull off another win and make their scores even. And by the way, even if the top two score the same amount of points, both of them will still move on. They won't need to do a tiebreaker. And here we go into race number 4. It looks like Rebel Racer might have the lead this time, but it is really close. They do have the lead now. They didn't at first, but Beavis and Butthead did bounce off the wall a little bit. And Rebel Racer is now out in front. The question is, will they be able to stay straight and hold on to it? Once again, they spin around and around the same spot, no less. And Beavis and Butthead took that opportunity and they take the win. Meanwhile, Rebel Racer finishes in second, almost blocks Ultra Quest with the underside of their vehicle. Yeah, I'm not sure what it is about that last section, but somehow it causes Rebel Racer to spin around, which you definitely don't want to do much of as they go into the grand finals later on. But Beavis and Butthead and Rebel Racer will be the ones moving on, neither one undefeated, but definitely some valiant racers. Welcome to day number 6 of the Custom Mario Mail-In Tournament. We've had some crazy races so far, so let's meet the first group and see if there's going to be any crazy ones in this one. Number 11, Chase Family, 83.99 grams. Number 2, Ryan Kelly, at 96.87 grams. Number 46, Ghost Rider Pink, at 35.7 grams. And number 56, Silent Johnny, 70.5 grams. I definitely recognize some of those names, and it looks like Ryan Kelly may have taken a page from Arlo, as they also have a character in a stretched out vehicle sitting towards the front, which I've been told may be a smart move in terms of weight distribution, because that could definitely help with overall speed and control. And it definitely seems to be working, as Ryan Kelly is already out in front with a decent sized lead, and some of the other racers are trying to catch him, but so far unable to do so, as Ryan Kelly goes down that last hill and they easily take the first win. 16.92, it definitely looked a little bit faster than that from my perspective, but I can't question the timer. Is anyone else going to finish, though? Oh yeah, here comes somebody. It looks like it's Ghost Rider Pink. And they barely get themselves across the line, so I think that will count. And it looks like everybody actually did finish. It just took Ghost Rider a little bit longer to get there. Not entirely sure where they lost so much speed, but there they are. They tried to spin around and straighten themselves out going forward, but they ultimately finished backwards, and with barely enough speed to make it happen. But so far, Ryan Kelly has the first win. Chase Family and Silent Johnny are hot on their tail. As we begin the second race, Ryan Kelly does have the initial lead. Silent Johnny not too far behind, and neither is Ghost Rider. So as we get into the lane mergers, Ryan Kelly does have the lead, but we do have a closer race this time around. Will it stay that way is the ultimate question. But Ryan Kelly does have the lead. Ghost Rider Pink is staying relatively close, but it's not close enough, as Ryan Kelly once again finishes in first. And I was about to say Ghost Rider Pink finishes in second, but Silent Johnny comes out of nowhere. I think he did grab the second place position at the last possible moment. And look at the gap between the two initially. But because of that spin out, Silent Johnny was able to find an opportunity. And we will see in a moment if it was enough. And it looks like it was. Silent Johnny barely edged out Ghost Rider there. That is definitely a comeback if I've ever seen one. Into race number 3, Ryan Kelly is trying to get as much of a lead as they can early on. Any lead you can get early will definitely help you later. But here come the other racers again, and it looks like they might pass him. Silent Johnny is almost next to Ryan Kelly, but Ryan Kelly is able to maintain more speed and gets their lead back. So now no one is relatively close to them anymore. But Silent Johnny is trying to make something happen, and it looks like they were going sideways entering that last turn. And Ryan Kelly will automatically move on to today's finals, and Silent Johnny has the best odds in joining them. Ryan Kelly is definitely not necessarily putting up the best times, but relatively consistent with them. But the way their driver is positioned, it may help them out in some later races. I'm not sure how the Ghost Rider is staying in that seat, but it seems to be working, whatever it is. And in this last race, it's actually Silent Johnny who takes an initial lead, but Ryan Kelly is trying to catch him now. It looks like he might have, but as I say that, Ryan Kelly suddenly loses so much speed, and Ghost Rider Pink now has a decent lead beside Silent Johnny. Now Silent Johnny's slowing down. Ghost Rider Pink suddenly has a lead. Will they be able to hold on to it, though? They are losing a bit of speed, and here comes Ryan Kelly trying to push him out of the way. But end up pushing him forward, and now Silent Johnny takes the final win there. And I think Ghost Rider Pink finished in second. Regardless, Ryan Kelly is not going to be undefeated. I'm not entirely sure what happened there. But Silent Johnny is definitely moving on alongside Ryan Kelly. And Ghost Rider Pink put in a valiant effort in that last race, even though they knew they weren't going to be moving on. It'll be Ryan Kelly and Silent Johnny. And in the second group for today, we have number 33, Lily the Dog, at 51.07 grams. Number 60, Fast Turd, 106.93 grams. Number 43, Laro, at 43.27 grams. And number 38, Raoul's Racing, at 42.97 grams. These are definitely some interesting racers, to say the least. I definitely recall seeing Lily the Dog here before, and it looks like they brought another canine with them to compete in this race, or this tournament rather, just like they did in the last one. And Fast Turd, despite being a literal pile of crap, is doing really well. In fact, they're pulling away from all the other racers. That is definitely not a set of words I imagined myself saying at any point in my life, but here we are. Now Fast Turd is going to take the first win without any issue. And they finish almost under 16 seconds. Definitely faster than some of the previous racers we've had in recent races. And Raoul's Racing is another Star Wars character, and they fall just shy of the finish line. Rebel Racer we had in the last video, and I didn't think we'd see another Star Wars character for a while, but here we are. That being said, they did finish in last, whereas Lily the Dog finished in second and Laro in third. And so far, no one has been able, as far as I can tell, to break Blue Line Racing's fastest time, which I believe is still 14.41. If I'm ever wrong about that, please notify me. Until race number 2, Fast Turd takes an early lead, and they're gradually trying to expand it. They are sharing the lane with Laro, who's right on their tail, and here comes Lily the Dog, trying to make something happen here. And it looks like they were almost able to, but so far Fast Turd is still pulling away. I cannot believe I am seeing a 3D poop emoji finishing in first in these races right now. It's definitely throwing me for a loop at the moment. But I think Laro finished in second, and then Lily in third. And Little Grogu not finishing at all that time. Yeah, definitely a 16.03 is really close to breaking that 16-second line, but still hasn't quite gotten there. But Fast Turd only needs one more win to move on to today's finals. Let's see if they can do it. Yeah, they are grabbing an early lead, but Lily and Laro are staying hot on their tail. Or whatever you would call it. But Laro suddenly has a burst of speed, and now they have the lead. And Fast Turd is trying to catch them, trying to stay undefeated. And they are closing the gap. Now they're relatively even going into that turn. And Fast Turd now has the lead. But I wouldn't count Laro out here. And now Fast Turd has a decent-sized lead, and they finish in third yet again, spinning wildly right before crossing the finish line. Usually it's either a half turn or even a slow turn if they go all the way around, but that was one of the fastest spins I've seen. And Grogu still isn't able to finish. I think they finished in the first race. Or no, they almost did, rather. I don't think they've finished yet. So far, no, but Fast Turd is automatically moving on. So we'll definitely be seeing more of that. I would almost say that's chocolate ice cream, but that may be a cliche response to what that actually is. And they do have the lead yet again, but here comes Laro again. Something about that ramp, they're suddenly able to go a little bit faster, and now they're sharing the same lane as Fast Herd, so they may be able to stay in front of Fast Herd if they are careful. But they do skid sideways, and it looks like somebody lost a piece of their vehicle or a prop or something, because I saw something fly off the track, and it looked like Laro was going to stop Fast Herd, but Fast Herd pulled around them at the last second, and Fast Herd is going into today's finals undefeated. It was very close, but close doesn't get the job done. It's how you finish, and Fast Herd was able to do it. And we're going to have to go back at some point and see what flew off the track. Feel free to go back and look if you wish. But for now, we're going to have to move on, which Fast Herd and Laro are able to do. And here we go into the finals for today. It'll be Ryan Kelly, Laro, Fast Herd, and Silent Johnny. Ryan Kelly was almost undefeated, and Fast Herd is. So we'll have to see how that plays out in today's finals with this group. And Laro, once again, something about that turn into that dip is causing them to gain a decent amount of speed. And they are trying to stay on top of Fast Herd here. But as they split and go different directions, looks like Fast Herd will take the lead. And I think I saw something fly off the track again. I'm not sure if it was something that belonged to Fast Herd. Maybe it's a piece of their vehicle, but I'm not entirely sure. We'll have to check the cameras to see exactly what it was. Maybe it's the same thing as the first time, and they're able to put it back on in between races. It might have been their name tag or something, I'm not entirely sure. But Fast Herd does take the first win. They will need 3 more races in order to stay undefeated. We have not had an undefeated racer, I don't think, in a decent amount of time. So this could definitely be an interesting addition to that lineup, if you will. And Fast Herd does have the lead already. And Laro's trying to catch him, is almost able to do so. They're relatively even. But Fast Herd is able to edge him out, causing Laro to lose so much momentum. And now Fast Herd has a decent-sized lead over everybody. So unless they spin out or something, it's going to look pretty good for them. And they go into the last dip, no one anywhere close to them, and they finish in first yet again, and they are 2 races away from going into the grand finals undefeated. Meanwhile, Ryan Kelly tries to catch Laro. Almost did it, but I don't think it was enough. We'll have to check the scores, but it looked like they were just barely shy. Which is interesting, because it looked like Ryan Kelly was almost going to finish in 4th, but they did pass Silent Johnny. But they did not pass Laro. So now Ryan Kelly and Laro are tied for points, trying to fight for that 2nd spot. Whereas Fast Herd almost has it down lock. And they have the lead yet again. This is a relatively close group overall, with some slight edges given to 1 or 2 racers. But sometimes, even when they do have the lead, other racers are catching up. And Silent Johnny almost had Fast Herd there. But I don't think it'll be enough as he pulls away, and Silent Johnny's quickly falling behind. They lost a decent amount of speed, but they are still moving forward. But Fast Herd will be moving on to the grand finals, and that is one of the weirdest finishes I've ever seen. Because all 3 racers finished around the same time, but I don't think any of them were straight. It looked like Laro had it, but then he started skidding sideways, and then the other racers tried to catch him. I don't know how that's going to play out. It looked like Silent Johnny apparently got the 2nd place, whereas Laro got 3rd, and I think Ryan Kelly got last. So Ryan Kelly has 6, Laro has 7, and Silent Johnny has 5. 4, 5, and 6 respectively. And we'll see who moves on alongside Fast Turd in a second, but so far Fast Turd is just one race away from staying undefeated. But Lero is currently blocking him, and they both lose so much speed because of it. So I don't know if Fast Turd will be able to get that win anymore. I guess Lero figured if he wasn't going to move on, he was going to stop Fast Turd from doing it. And now these two racers are able to finish, and it looks like Ryan Kelly finished in first, and Silent Johnny in second, Fast Turd in third, I believe, and Lero in last. So we're going to have to see, because of how close those points were, who will be moving on with Fast Turd. And it looks like Ryan Kelly, with that win, will be moving on alongside Fast Turd, who almost was undefeated, but not quite. Thank you all so much. Approaching the final sprint for the grand finals, but we have a couple more days left. Hey everybody, welcome to day number 7. Let's meet the first group for today. We have number 26, Sky and Dad, 31.5 grams. Number 10, Flip Gambino, 80.10 grams. 48, Sir Pounce, 38.09 grams. And number 57, Eddie Walters at 86.99 grams. Two of these racers are Mario characters. One of them is Sonic again, and I'm not sure entirely what character that fourth one is from Sky and Dad, but it definitely looks great, which circles back around to me just praising the creativity that a lot of these competitors have. Sometimes they change the design of the racer, sometimes they change the racer itself, sometimes they customize the car in some way, but every single time it looks absolutely fantastic. In this race right now, Flip Gambino is out in front, and it looks like they have a similar strategy to J-Lo, who put their character near the front of the vehicle, and it seems to be working. In fact, they finished with a great time of 14.74. Not quite the fastest time we've ever seen, which, by the way, is still held, as far as I know, by Blue Line Racing with 14.41. So about a third of a second off. So that is really good. A lot of the racers we've seen recently, they've been finishing in the 16 or 17 second marks, which for their own group is fine, but for later on, it could be dangerous. But Flip Gambino did take that first win, so now he has the edge. And look at that, right out the gate, he already has a big lead compared to everybody else. Eddie Walters, represented by Sonic, is taking second place for the moment. But I guess that strategy of having your character placed near the front of the vehicle is really good. I'm no physics expert, but a few of you in the comments were saying that by doing that, it actually keeps them from spinning or something, which, since physics is not my expertise area, then I will take your word for it. Meanwhile, Flip Gambino does have another win. They just need one more to stamp their spot in today's finals at least. And they're consistently finishing under 15 seconds, which is not only good for now, but promising for later. Meanwhile, we have somebody who didn't finish. Let's see who it was. It looks like it was Sir Pounce. And that stretch seems to be, as I've been saying in previous videos, a popular spot for racers to stop. Sometimes they get a little bit before that, sometimes a little bit after, but right before that last turn, something about it just stops them from going around and getting into that final stretch before the finish line. That's definitely not helping Sir Pounce at all, but it definitely helps everybody else. We go into race number 3, and something about that physics stuff seems to be proven right here, because Flip Gambino, right after they start the race, he's already got a car's length or two ahead of everybody else, and it just keeps growing, and he hasn't really spun out much at all. Keeping straight and having lightning fast speed is something you absolutely need, especially the further in you get into the tournament. But Flip Gambino, he already has his spot in today's finals, and now he just wants to stay undefeated. I think I've I've been writing them down as they happen, so hopefully I haven't missed one. But I think up to this point, we've only had 2 racers that have finished completely undefeated. They are Dusty Miles from day 1 and Arlo, who, like Luigi here, has their character near the front of the vehicle. So maybe they got something going on here. We've had several racers actually get very close to being undefeated, and then one race tripped them up. So I wouldn't count them out just yet, just because they're not undefeated. But right now, Gambino is showing that he is nobody to be messed with. It's hard to commentate on anybody else because you can almost never see anybody else. He is way out in front, and it's already only about halfway through the track. And look at that, even if he starts sliding a little bit, he almost instantly corrects himself. And he goes down that hill, and he will remain undefeated going into today's finals. And he finished with a 14.09. I believe that's the fastest time we've had so far. Flip Gambino, currently undefeated, currently holding the fastest time. This is a racer to watch out for. Meanwhile, Sir Pounce continues the pattern of finishing and then not finishing. And unfortunately, not finishing is where it will stop, as is their time in this tournament. But I still commend them on the creativity and the design of their racer and their vehicle. Yeah, Flip Gambino is definitely a threat for other racers. Let's see if anyone in the second group can do the same. Number 62, Area 51, 91.44 grams. Number 17, Russell Scott, 36.63 grams. Number 58, Koopa Dragster, 98.94 grams. And number 53, Nomo, at 57.74 grams. Yoshi seems to be elevated in that Mach 8. The Russell Scott Koopa Troopa, I'm not sure what's covering his face. Maybe it's an aesthetic thing. I mean, hopefully it is, otherwise he probably can't see where he's driving. Area 51 is represented by an alien. I think that's actually one of those little alien things you can get in those little kiosks. I used to get those a lot as a kid. My favorite was the snowboard. And the last racer, who's currently in first right now, Koopa Dragster, he's doing the opposite of what some of the racers have been doing by having their racer in the back instead of the front, but it seems to be just as effective because they also finished in first. Meanwhile, Area 51 and Nomo finished in second and third respectively, and Russell Scott is just now getting to the finish line. A decent amount of speed once they got there, but it took them a little bit. Yeah, I guess how well you do sometimes in your vehicle sometimes depends on where your racer is placed in comparison to said vehicle. Yeah, I'm wondering if that stuff covering his face is preventing him from racing at full potential, because it looks to me like he can't actually see. But maybe he'll pull off some big surprise here. And as we've seen in this tournament and previous ones, there have been plenty of surprises to go around. But Koopa Dragster is once again out in front. He seems to be a little bit slower this time. But look, here comes Nomo out of nowhere. They get around that turn around the same time, but Dragster takes the lead back, and this time seems to be a good distance away from Nomo. And he gets around that turn. Nomo's trying to catch back up, but is struggling to do so. Koopa Dragster is spinning around, but I guess the length of that car is actually a benefit to him, because before he can go fully sideways, he bumps the side of the track and straightens back out. Meanwhile, Area 51 gets hit in the head by the other Koopa Troopa. Hopefully everyone's okay, because collisions like that are never pretty. We've seen some ugly crashes, some painful looking ones to be sure. Sometimes they fall off the track from a good height, but they still keep on racing, so props to them for tenacity. But Koopa Dragster, they have 2 wins already, 1 more, and they're on their way. And I'm not sure what they've got mounted on the back there. It almost looks like a mini GoPro, but maybe that's just there for creativity purposes. But now he and Nomo are on the same part of the track instead of separate. And Nomo seems to be about the same distance behind as he was before. And Koopa Dragster seems to have 2 engines on that vehicle. I guess that's allowed because they're here and they're doing well and nobody's stopping them. And they seem to be gradually improving in time, which is good because they will need it as they get into today's finals. Meanwhile, where is Russell Scott? There he is. And he finished backwards this time. And you know, sometimes I gotta give props to some of these racers because it's like, even if they know they're not gonna finish well, they still finish, and sometimes just for the heck of it, they finish in style. Because sometimes the coolest finish is more memorable than the fastest one. So maybe that's what Russell was going for there. It's like, might as well grab something. But Koopa Dragster already has a spot in the finals. It's just a matter of who's going to join him, and it's pretty close between Nomo and Area 51, because Nomo, he has 8 points, and Area 51 has 7. So if Area 51 can finish in, let's say, 2nd, and then Nomo finishes in 3rd, we will have a tiebreaker. But we will see what happens right now. Koopa Dragster is just trying to stay undefeated like in the first group did. Like a racer in the first group. Ugh. And it looks like it'll happen because they go down that stretch once again. The length of their car coming in handy. And they finish in 1st yet again. And who's going to finish in 2nd? It's Area 51! Ladies and gentlemen, we will have a tiebreaker. And here comes Russell Scott, finishing every time, which is definitely a bigger accomplishment than some of our racers have had, unfortunately. Well, unfortunately for those other racers, not Russell. Because some racers, they never finish. Sometimes they might have finished a couple times. But if you finish every time, at least you're consistent. But we do have a tiebreaker on our hands between Nomo and Area 51. Now, if this is like recent tiebreakers, the way this will work is that both racers, they will compete against each other in 2 separate little races here. And you want to go for the fastest time. Now, let's say you get the faster time in the first race, but then the other racer gets the faster time in the second. If your faster time was quicker than their faster time, then you will still move on. Right now, it's Nomo who's out in front, staying ahead of Area 51. And obviously, if you finish in front of the other both times, then you just automatically win regardless. Because both times the other time was slower than yours. But Nomo does have the advantage here, finishing before Area 51 did. And here we go into race number 2. If Nomo can finish in 1st again, I believe that will mean he will move on in place of Area 51. But Area 51 can say that they did not go down without a fight, and it looks like that's what's happening now, as they are trying to catch Nomo. But Nomo just has a little bit more of a speed advantage. They do spin around backwards, and Area 51 tried to pass him, but ended up shifting his momentum back to Nomo, who almost spun around again before the last turn, and now they're getting into that last dip, almost going sideways once more, and Nomo, I believe, will be the one moving on, and Area 51 just barely fell short. Yeah, definitely going across with style. I was about to say they almost both finished backwards, but Area 51 spun back around at the last minute. Yep, Nomo will be moving on, and they will join Koopa Dragster in the finals, which will start now. We have Flip Gambino, Nomo, Koopa Dragster, and Eddie Walters. Right now, 2 of these racers are undefeated, being Koopa Dragster and Flip Gambino. Both of these racers are undefeated, meaning only one of them could remain that way by the time these next 4 races are through. And it looks like it's in favor of Flip Gambino, who once again takes a huge lead. Koopa Dragster was in first every time before, but if you looked at the clock, you might have noticed that their times were a little bit slower than Flip's. And Flip will remain undefeated, whereas Koopa Dragster will still finish in second, so they could still move on, but they are not undefeated anymore. Eddie Walters finishes in third, and Nomo finishes in fourth. Yeah, I guess front or back, if you place your character away from the center of the vehicle, then that apparently is a good strategy to use. And Flip Gambino did finish with a 14.72 that time, so it was a little bit slower, but they still now hold on to the fastest time we've seen in this tournament so far, which almost broke 14 seconds. I really think he could do it if he stays straight the whole time and maintains his speed throughout. And he does take a decent-sized lead again, even in front of Koopa Dragster. The other 3 are trying to make something happen, but when you have somebody going up against you that currently holds the fastest time in the tournament, especially 7 days in, it's definitely going to be a struggle. And Flip Gambino finishes in first yet again, finishing with a 14.14. And I'm not sure who won there. I would have thought maybe Koopa Dragster because of how long his vehicle is. Let's see if the replay helps us at all. From this angle, maybe not, but for all we know, it'll give us exactly what we need. From that angle, it almost looked like Eddie finished before the other, but... And it looks like it was Eddie. Eddie finished in second that time. That is a massive help to them because they were struggling before. If they can keep that up, then they might be moving on in front of Koopa Dragster. But right now, Dragster and Gambino are practically neck and neck as they go into the lane mergers here. But around that turn, Gambino takes a decent-sized lead and it continues to expand. And now Gambino is approaching the last turn yet again. One more finish and he's moving on to the grand finals, and it looks like it will happen. Flip Gambino is moving on to the grand finals, and he just needs one more race to be the next undefeated racer in that tournament. Or rather, in the next stage of this tournament. You know what I mean. But now Nomo and Eddie are fighting for third and fourth. Now it's looking a little rough for Eddie and Nomo. But maybe one of them will pull off something I don't expect. I'll have to look at the points again. See, Eddie has 6, Nomo has 4, and the closest one to them is Dragster, who has 8. So since Eddie Walters has 8, or rather 6, he does have an opportunity, but he needs to finish far ahead of Koopa Dragster in order for that to happen. Right now, though, we will focus on Gambino, who's trying to remain undefeated. He's going down that last dip, and it looks like he'll do it. Ladies and gentlemen, after a long hiatus of racers who got close to being undefeated, we now have a new addition to that group. Flip Gambino is our newest racer in the undefeated category, and he holds on to the fastest time, taking that away from Blue Line Racing. Valiant effort by all racers, particularly Nomo, who had to fight through a tiebreaker first. But now we only have 2. Almost time for the grand finals, but we still have 2 more slots to fill, and they will be filled today. Hey everybody, welcome to day number 8. Let's meet the first... Oh! Apparently, we have several cars that will be in this race, but the ones that don't have a specific name attached will not be able to win the full tournament. Number 44 has 34.45 grams. Number 59 has 30.31 grams. Number 19 is Numbskull. He's back at 112.01 grams. Number 61 is another RAF at 38.66 grams. And Numbskull is back. I'm not sure entirely what the weight limit is on some of these vehicles, but apparently that's allowed because Numbskull's here. We've seen Numbskull race before, and they're back again, this time with the dry bones in a really stacked vehicle. Both figuratively and definitely literally. And all the RAFs are represented by Despicable Me characters for some reason. But even if they aren't allowed to win the full tournament, it may not matter for those three because Numbskull is already out in front and so far has had nobody catch up to them, and they finish in first. If they move on... Actually, now that I think about it, it did say 7 racers would be RAF, and there's only 3 here. That means the entire group, after this one today, will be RAF vehicles. So that means one of the racers in the grand finals won't even be able to win the whole thing. That is an absolute shock to me. I don't think I've ever seen anything like that before. But Numbskull is basically all on their own right now. And so far they're doing well because they did finish in first. So let's see if they can keep that up. The Minions and Gru are trying to catch him. So far unable to do so. You can see that Minion trying to eye him on the way down. And they get through the lane mergers around the same time, but Numbskull is way out in front. That Minion is trying to get closer. It looked like he was starting to. But it looks like all that progress was lost. In fact, I don't even see them anymore. And Numbskull finishes in first again. And the other 3 racers are where? Well, there's one of them. It looks like it's Gru. But the other 2, nowhere to be seen. One of them stopped sideways on a level up before the last, and the other one got stopped right before the last turn. So Numbskull is currently doing well, and I will say this, ladies and gentlemen, Numbskull is the only racer out of this entire video who has a chance to win the entire thing because they are an actual racer representing an actual person, whereas any of these other racers signify that someone did sign up but apparently did not send their racer in. So if for some reason Numbskull does not move on, I want everyone to put a comment under this video saying justice for Numbskull. But for now we may not have to do that because Numbskull is out in front once more, and if they finish now, then they will move on automatically, and they do. And they don't have much competition at all from these Despicable Me characters whatsoever. In fact, where are they? I know one of them just finished, but where are the other 2? Well, here comes one of them. It looks like it's Gru. But I don't think everybody's going to finish. Nope, it looks like that same one got stuck around a similar spot, just on the opposite side of the track. So let's look at the score totals now. We know Numbskull will be moving on. But who has the best chance of joining them is the real question right now. This is definitely an unusual situation. I'm kind of at a loss for words regarding what's going on. Right now, the best one to have a chance to move on is one of the Minions. I want to say it's the one with the snorkel. But Gru is only 1 point behind them, so it could be either one of them. Whereas the one with the blue hat, they've only finished once, so it's not looking good for them at all. But Numbskull is trying to stay undefeated, which honestly, in this particular scenario, I say he deserves to be. And he keeps on going trying to stay away from those RAFs. And they finish in first, so not only is Numskull moving on and knocking out at least 2 of those RAF racers, but he also has the privilege of going into the finals undefeated, something a few racers have had, but only 3 up to this point have stayed undefeated afterwards. That means there will be 1 RAF vehicle joining him, and at least he'll have to race at least 2 more, depending on who does well in the second group, which we will get introduced to right now. But they are all RAFs. The first one is at 42.53 grams. Number 64 is at 91.48 grams. Love the design of that one. Number 28 is at 31.54 grams. Number 24 is at 31.66 grams. 3 of them are minions, but that other one is a toad, which makes you wonder, how is that one in RAF, but still seems like it was customized and sent in by somebody. I'm not sure what the technicalities are of that. I'm not the head honcho of Races and Fun. I'm just the commentator. But that toad is out in front, and they have a similar design to Koopa Dragster, who had a stretched out vehicle like that with a couple engines, and the character sits in the back of the vehicle. But it is working out for them, and they finish in first. Now, I'm not sure what to think of this group, though, because if all 4 of them are RAF, that means none of them will be allowed to win the overall tournament. So part of me even wonders, why have them race? I guess just to throw a curveball into the mix, I guess, if nothing else. Because at least one will be in the grand finals, since only 1 racer today was represented by an actual person. But the toad is out in front with a first place finish so far. I'm noticing there's a lot of blue and yellow, partly through the minions, partly through the vehicles. But the Toad RAF is out in front once again, and the other 3 are staying relatively close together. Around that first turn, they're trying to catch him, but Toad is pulling away. And now we're in the lane mergers, and Toad's lead just gradually keeps expanding. And now the other 3 racers are pretty much off camera, and they seem to be getting slower and slower, whereas Toad seems to be at least maintaining most of their speed. And they go into that last dip, and they win once more. In the other 3, here's at least one of them. We have the one in the sneaker finishing, and here's the rest to follow suit. Yeah, I'm apologizing if my commentary isn't the greatest right now. I'm just a little bit confused, because this is quite the unusual scenario we're in. A bunch of minions, Gru and Toad, and none of them will be allowed to win the overall tournament. Granted, only 1 out of those 7 will be moving on, but it's definitely strange. I mean, I guess 2 of them could move on if 2 of them beat Numskull, but Numskull so far hasn't lost a race against any of them, and I'm sure he would like to keep that upheld. And quite frankly, so do I in this particular case. But here comes Toad again. It looks like 1 racer is relatively close to them this time. But now as they get into the final turn, that doesn't mean much, because the lead is pretty much expanding as the race progresses. And that Toad will be in today's finals against Numskull. And the other racers are trying to keep this at least a relatively close competition, but it's hard to do that when you know you can't actually win the overall thing. But that Toad finished with a 17.30. The fastest time we have is with Flip Gambino, who finished with a 14.09 in the last video. So if any one of these racers end up moving on, they will need to step up their game, because I know there are racers that are faster than some of these. Here we go into heat number 4. Toad is already moving on. And if he does stay undefeated all the way through today's finals, it'll definitely be an unusual circumstance, because that will mean we have 4, I believe, undefeated racers in the grand finals, but one of them really won't even matter. But if Numbskull does it, that means 4 racers in the grand finals will have a shot to stay undefeated. But even if the Toad is undefeated now, it doesn't mean much when it's an RAF. And all the racers I'm trying to say are going to finish. I don't think that one's going to count, however. I think you need to have at least the vast majority of your vehicle over the finish line. Or at least 1/2 of your wheels over the finish line, something like that. But that definitely is not going to count. Yeah, I am just kind of speechless right now. I've not really seen this happen too many times. I know I keep saying that, but that's just because it's true. It's not every day you see something like that. The sensor did go off, so I guess they're going to give it to them. But we do have 2 undefeated racers in today's finals, and thankfully one of them is Numbskull. The other is the Toad RAF. So let's see what happens here. I'm sure Numbskull would love to stay undefeated against all these RAFs, defeating every single one of them without any faults in there. And so far he is doing that, staying just in front of the Toad RAF, who's also undefeated. And all of a sudden Toad just loses so much speed, and Numbskull is on his own. If he can stay that way, then he will remain undefeated if he wins all the other races as well. What I am seeing, though, is that they are swerving a lot, which may not be too much of a problem right now, but it's definitely something to be careful of later on. And that minion did not finish. Meanwhile, Numbskull, the hero of the day, remains undefeated, dethroning the Toad RAF at the same time, and now just needs 3 more races and 3 more wins to stay undefeated going into the grand finals. Just 3 races remaining for Numbskull. To show our support, let's all say something supportive to Numbskull, because this is quite the unusual set of circumstances, and I'm sure Numbskull would not want to lose against racers who are essentially CPUs, for the lack of a better phrasing. But Numbskull so far is out in front yet again, and this time no one is anywhere close to them, even for most of the race. Not even Toad. And now Numbskull does finish in second once again. Toad tries to catch him, but it is meaningless. And the minions are far behind. One in the sneaker, and I'm not sure where the other one actually was. Oh, I guess they were not too far behind Toad. I guess I just missed him. But this time they finished with a 15.66. That is slightly better, but they will need to step up the game at least a little bit, because other racers have finished at least a full second faster than that. But for now, Numbskull is the one to root for. Into race number 3, Numbskull just needs 1 more win to automatically be in the grand finals, and 2 more wins to stay undefeated, which will at least allow us to have 4 undefeated racers, and all 4 of them will have a shot at winning the whole thing. Which means a quarter of our racers that are in that tournament Or, I am so sorry. In that next part of the tournament, they could stay undefeated. Only one of them obviously can do that. But Numbskull is already on their way. Meanwhile, this particular minion is stuck before the last turn. Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people are rooting for Numbskull right now to stay undefeated. Granted, at least one of them will move on. Right now, it's kind of between the minion with the snorkel and Toad. But Numbskull is guaranteed. They're just trying to stay undefeated now. Right now, they do have the edge, but Toad is not too far behind there. Granted, 2 or 3 turns in, Toad seems to lose a lot of their speed, which will be great for Numbskull. Into the lane mergers we go. And those two racers, Toad and I think that was the one with the snorkel, were fighting going into that lane merger, which slowed both of them down, allowing for Numbskull to go around that last turn with no competition, going down the dip, and they will stay undefeated going into the grand finals. One of these RAF racers will join him, but we know that that racer, whichever one it is, will not be able to win. Meanwhile, Numbskull still can. And I guess that one minion had enough, because by the time he got off the track, he jumped out of his vehicle. It'll be Toad joining him, so no minions in the grand finals. But now our whole lineup for the grand finals is set. Thank you all for watching. Many good moments, many tragic moments, but we are finally here at the grand finals. I know I said ultimate finals in the last video. I apologize about that, but this is the grand finals, or the semifinals as you may like to call it. But half of this roster will compete today, and the other half in a second video later on. Here is the first group from the first half. We have Rebel Racer at 80.65 grams, driven by Ahsoka. Beavis and Butthead at 109 grams. We have Bartolo, 56.29 grams, driven by Bart. And Dusty Miles at 112.43 grams. And out of this group, one of them is undefeated up until this point, and that distinction goes to Dusty Miles. So I'm sure they would like to remain undefeated for as long as they can, preferably until they, in their eyes, win the tournament. That would be absolutely ideal for them. Right now, they do have the lead. The question is, will they be able to hold on to it? Bartolo and Rebel are relatively close together as they get into that lane split, and Bartolo is trying to catch Dusty Miles as they get into the final turn. Rebel goes around that last turn, not too far behind Bartolo, and Dusty Miles finishes in first, followed quickly by Bartolo. Beavis and Butthead actually finish in third, and Rebel doesn't finish at all. They got so close to that finish line, but something made them stop between the final turn and the straight leading to the finish line. It looks like they backed up against the wall and were skidding sideways simultaneously, causing them to lose so much speed that they couldn't finish. Definitely not how you want to start. And Dusty Miles, while undefeated, does not have the fastest time right now. That distinction goes to, I believe it was, it was Flip Gambino, who currently has the fastest time of 14.09. Up until they competed, it was held by Blue Line Racing, but Flip Gambino has since beaten that time. In this particular group right now, Dusty Miles is out in front again. Bartolo is actually further behind this time. And Dusty Miles has no competition right now. And they go into the finish yet again in first, staying undefeated. And they finish with a slightly better 14.97. And this time everybody finished, but Bartolo finished in fourth. They did have the lead over the other two, but they lost that lead as they passed him. So let's look at the scores now. It looks like Dusty Miles is in a good place. Well, no one else in that group has any more than 4 or 5 points. Beavis and Butthead has 5, Bartolo has 4, and Rebel has 2. Really, it's still anybody's game. Right now, Dusty Miles is pretty much a surefire bet to move on already. to today's finals race. But, oh, look at this. Bartolo actually is in front of Dusty Miles. He's trying to block him to keep him from finishing in first and staying undefeated. And so far it seems to be working because both of them are slowed down significantly. And Beavis and Butthead finish in first. Dusty Miles is dethroned. Not only that, but Bartolo keeps blocking him, and he stops him from finishing any better than last. Quite the sacrificial move, but if you're gonna stop someone from being undefeated, that is definitely one way to do it. Anytime Dusty Miles tried to pass Bartolo just kept it from happening. And that blows the door wide open on this competition. Dusty Miles is more than likely still going to move on, but that definitely threw a wrench into things. Beavis and Butthead, who was already second in points, got the first place finish there, so they are definitely helping themselves there. So it just got a lot harder for Bartolo and Rebel to move on to the finals today. And right now, Dusty Miles is not happy, and they are trying to pass Beavis and Butthead once again. And so far, Beavis and Butthead skid sideways almost to a stop, but they keep going. Bartolo passes them as they go into the last turn, and Dusty Miles finishes in first once again. He will be moving on, and it looks like Beavis and Butthead will be joining him. Bartolo, a valiant effort. They may have no longer been able to go on into this competition, but that sacrificial move was a big deal. Now here we go into the second group. We will have Ryan Kelly, 96.87 grams. Fast Turd, 106.93 grams. Chris Fork at 62 grams even. And Blue Line Racing is here again at 113.10 grams. Blue Line Racing is currently the defending champion based off of the last tournament we were in. And they did have the fastest time for a while, but that has been taken. So now I'm sure they would love to take it back, although they would pretty much need to break the 14-second mark, or just be barely over it in order to take that time back. They do have the lead right now, so that's definitely a good thing for them. But who will join them? I still can't believe that a 3D poo emoji, essentially, is currently in this race, but they have been racing well. In fact, they finished in second behind Blue Line, whereas Chris Fork finishes in third and Ryan Kelly in fourth. Let's see what his time was. It was a 14.74, not one of his faster times, but definitely a promising one. Anything below 15 seconds is a bit more reassuring. Into heat number 2. Blue Line currently has the edge over the other 3. But it looks like Fast Turd may still be keeping the fast in their name and keeping it well, because they've been having a slight edge over at least the other 2 racers. And you want to finish in at least the top 2, at least for now. Because as long as you're in the top 2, you will move on. Blue Line Racing is still out in front. And in terms of designs, Blue Line actually has one of the more simpler ones. But as they're showing, simpler can sometimes be better. They finish in first once again. Fast Turd finishes in second, but Ryan Kelly finishes in third this time. And Chris Fork is nowhere to be seen. In fact, they somehow almost fell off the track right after the first turn up there. I'm not sure what they did to do that, but at least they didn't fall off and hurt themselves, because that would have been probably too brutal to show on camera. Looking at the scores now, it's really looking good for Blue Line, looking pretty good for Fast Turd. The other 2, it's hard to say. Into heat number 3, Blue Line. I don't think he's undefeated. I believe he almost was, but was cut short in the last video they appeared in. But they are trying to stay undefeated in this particular move, trying to get that sweep. Chris Fork tried to keep him from passing him, but was unsuccessful in doing so. And Blue Line is taking off going around the last turn, going down the dip. No one is behind them, and they finish in first. Followed quickly by Chris and Fast Turn. Chris Fork actually went from third to not finishing to second. Definitely helpful for them. I'm not sure if it's going to be enough. Because Fast Turn still finished in third, so they got a couple more points. So they will still need to fight Fast Turn for the second slot in the Ultimate Finals. Because Blue Line already has theirs, and now they're just trying to get the sweep. Here we go, into the last race for this group. 2 will be moving on, and 2 others will end their journey here. Right now, it looked like Fast Turn had the lead, but here comes Chris Fork, trying to keep their hopes alive, trying to make something happen. And they have a decent-sized lead now. If they finish in first, and Fast Turn finishes in third or worse, he might have a shot. I'm not sure about it for certain, because I'm not the best at calculating on the fly, but here comes Fast Turn. They do pass Chris Fork, who gets stuck right before the finish line. But Ryan Kelly does push them across. That was a crazy finish. It looked like Chris Fork might have been able to make something happen, but they stopped short at the last minute. So it looks like it will be Blue Line racing and Fast Turn moving on. Blue Line getting a sweep, no less. Here is half of your roster for the Ultimate Finals. Of the Ultimate Finals roster has been set, so now it's time for the other half to be filled. Hey everybody, welcome to day number 10 of the Custom Mario Mail-In Tournament. Here is the first group running today. Number 58, Koopa Dragster at 98.94 grams. At number 10, Flip Gambino, 80.10 grams. Number 21, Noob Racing, 101.81 grams. And number 20, Arlo, at 106.5 grams. Now you may notice that at least 3 of these racers have adopted a similar strategy where the racer is near the front or the back of the car as opposed to the middle, which seems to be a good strategy because all of them are here and they all adopted that similar style aside from possibly Noob Racing. The other thing of note is that 2 of these racers are of the remaining 3 that are still undefeated, so one of them is about to lose that position right here and now, and it looks like it might be Arlo, as Flip Gambino, who also holds the record for the fastest time right now, takes the lead and the win. So Arlo, in the first race of his during the Grand Finals, is now no longer undefeated, so we are down to 2 racers, that being Flip Gambino and Numbskull, who was undefeated in a very unusual set of circumstances, which we'll get to in a little bit. And remember, the top 2 can still move on to the Ultimate Finals. So even if Arlo is no longer undefeated, they can still have a shot at being in the Ultimate Finals alongside possibly Flip Gambino or somebody else. As we get into race number 2, Arlo is trying to catch back up to Flip Gambino. It looks like they're relatively even. Koopa Dragster is right behind him though, and as we get into the lane merger, Flip takes a bit of a bigger lead now. And as we get into another lane split, it looks like Flip Gambino's lead just keeps growing and growing. But now we're on that last turn, it almost looked like Arlo closed the gap a little bit, and Arlo was not thrilled with having his undefeated streak taken away from him, so he did the same back to Flip Gambino in that race. It looked like Flip was gonna have it, but then he spun around, lost control, and Arlo saw his window and took it. Not only that, but Koopa Dragster also passed him at the last second, causing Flip to finish in third in that race. Meanwhile, Noob Racing has some major work to do. But we'll see if them being the one racer that is sitting in the middle of the vehicle will do them any good. In this race, as we get back into lane mergers, Flip does have the lead, but as we saw, just because you have the lead now does not mean that you'll hold on to it for the entire race. Sometimes some last-minute surprises will happen, and other racers will take advantage of that. Thankfully for Flip, though, he does keep straight that time, and he takes the race win, while Arlo finishes in second, which is still very respectable in a situation like this. I think everybody finished. I only saw 3 of them, but maybe... Okay, so Noob Racing was actually relatively closer that time. And I don't think anybody has beaten Flip Gambino's fastest time yet. But they are certainly getting pretty close. 1 heat left. Right now, the person with the highest points is Flip Gambino with 12, but Arlo is right behind him with 11. Koopa Dragster currently has 7, and Noob Racing only has 3. So it's looking like Noob Racing will not be continuing in this tournament, but the fact that they got to the grand finals is definitely a wonderful accomplishment. But here comes Flip Gambino trying to stay straight again, kind of fishtailing a little, and they spin around the same spot as they did before. But they were able to at least stay straight by going backwards, and they took that race win, while Arlo finished in 2nd. And it looks like we have a non-finish, which actually goes to Koopa Dragster. He somehow wound up on his side, and Noob Racing was able to finish in better than 4th, but unfortunately it's not going to be enough, as Flip Gambino and Arlo will be moving on to today's finals. In the second group, we have an RAF racer. We have Numbskull at 112.01 grams. Number 12, Rainer Racing, 50.16 grams. And number 14, 41-14 Racing at 110 grams. Now this is definitely somewhat an unusual circumstance, as we touched on before, because Numbskull and RAF were in a previous group. And Numbskull raced pretty much nothing but RAFs when they were in the qualifiers for the grand finals. But thankfully, Numbskull remained undefeated against all those RAFs, and now they are here, currently with the lead. I don't know if those wings are helping or not, but all that matters right now is that they are in 1st. And they're trying to stay undefeated, because I think now they are the only one who is. And so far, that remains true. Meanwhile, RAF Toad finishes in 2nd. I'm not sure how everybody's going to feel about this racer being here, considering it's essentially a ghost racer. In replacement for somebody who had an entry, but didn't use it. Or something along that line. I'm not entirely sure of the technicalities there, and we have seen the comments of what we should do with RAF racers, especially for people who didn't qualify originally, and it looks like a new strategy will be adopted for future tournaments. This one will remain as is for now, but this will be taken into consideration for future RAF racers. Right now, though, in this race, Numbskull is trying to stay undefeated like he did with this other RAF, and they are side by side going into that finish, but RAF used the infamous nose block, and now I believe, ladies and gentlemen, no one in this tournament is undefeated. We also have a non-finisher again, and this time it looks to be Rainer Racing. Yeah, that is definitely a finish to remember, whether for better or worse, but yeah, I'm sure nobody wants to see that RAF finish if Numbskull gets gypped. So once again, if you feel like doing so, in the comments, just shout out Justice for Numbskull. Because now we also have no undefeated racers, and part of that is because of RAF. I should say RAF Toad, but I think that one's the only RAF racer left. But Numbskull is not happy with being dethroned as an undefeated racer, and now they have a decent-sized lead. The question now is, will they be able to hold on to it? Because Toad seems to be coming up behind them, but it may not be enough, as Numbskull does finish in 1st yet again. And RAF somehow ended up backwards, same thing with Reina, but everybody was able to finish that time. It was actually all relatively close, because sometimes we have 2 or 3 racers that do really well, and 1 or 2 that just fall far behind. But thankfully that wasn't the case here, keeping it a little more interesting. Into race number 3, it's mostly back and forth between Numbskull and RAF Toad. I'm sure Numbskull would like to see RAF go home. But I don't know if that'll happen this time around. But Numbskull is set to move on at this point, because he does have 13, while RAF Toad has 11, and the other two have only 6 and 2 respectively. So it looks like it will be Numbskull moving on, but that RAF racer will be joining him. 41-14 did finish in second that time, but it's not enough. And once again, unfortunately, Rainer Racing just could not get to the finish line. Not how they wanted to be removed from this tournament, I'm sure. But again, the fact that they got to the grand finals is a wonderful thing. But yes, Numbskull and RAF will be moving on. So ladies and gentlemen, our roster for the Ultimate Finals. Designs the world has ever seen come together in the Ultimate Finals. The roster is set, and we shall begin with the first group. And we have number 1, Dusty Miles, 112.43 grams. Number 36, Beavis and Butthead, 109 grams. Number 10, Flip Gambino, 80.10 grams. And number 20, Arlo, 106.5 grams. Now I would definitely say that Flip Gambino and Arlo especially are two rivals of sorts, because they did go back and forth a little bit before, and they dethroned each other as undefeated racers, of which now we have none. No racers at this point going into the Ultimate Finals are still undefeated. Some of them are close, but close doesn't get the job done. Flip Gambino, however, does currently have the record for the fastest time right now, that being a 14.09. If he stays straight the entire time, which he's struggling to do here, and he doesn't even get first place, he may not be undefeated anymore, but he can still hold on to the fastest time for now. So if he wins the whole thing, he will at least have 2 big accomplishments under his belt. Not necessarily getting the hat trick, but the next best thing. Right now, though, because he did spin around, Flip Gambino finished in second, and Dusty Miles, who raced all the way back on the first day of the tournament, is now here as well, and they take the first win. In this second race, Dusty Miles is trying to stay ahead of Arlo at least, but now they have to worry about Flip Gambino, who has a decent-sized lead over everybody else. And he gets closer to the last turn, and nobody is there to stop him right now. But as long as he can stay straight, that'll continue to remain true, and that is exactly what happens as he finishes with a 14.86. So who ended up finishing in second? It looks like it was Arlo, and it was, I'm pretty sure. That angle kind of threw me off for a second. But they did finish in second, so now because of that, and because Flip finished in first that race, he now has the lead for the highest amount of points. Now the top 2 will move on to the last round of this tournament, where 2 more spots will be filled in the next group. And right now it's looking like it'll be in the favor of Flip Gambino and Dusty Miles. But Arlo could make some comeback. Same with Beavis and Butthead. There's still 2 races left, so anything can happen. But Flip Gambino is consistently in the lead for most of the race, so as long as he can stay straight in that last stretch, he'll be okay. And he did stay straight again, so he takes that win, and Arlo finishes in second again. So that could spell trouble for Dusty Miles. It will probably be a little bit back and forth. Meanwhile, Beavis and Butthead just made it a lot harder for themselves to move on to the last round. We'll take a look at the points again in a second as heat number 4 begins. Flip Gambino currently has 13. Dusty Miles has 9. Arlo only has 8. So it really could be either one's game. But Arlo will need to finish in front of Dusty Miles in order to stay in this competition. And if he only gets 1 more point than Dusty Miles does, we will have a tiebreaker in the Ultimate Finals. Meanwhile, Flip Gambino is pretty much set to go at this point. And he finishes in first yet again, so he will be moving on to the last round. And Arlo does finish in front of Dusty Miles. Not only that, but he finished 2 spots ahead of him. So it's entirely possible that Arlo just snuck in that last moment there, and he did! Flip Gambino and Arlo are moving on to the last round. And who will join them in this second group? It could be Blue Line Racing at 113.10 grams. It could be Fast Turd at 110 grams. It could be Numbskull at 112.01 grams. Or it could be the infamous RAF at 91.48 grams. Now, this is definitely an interesting situation like it has been up to this point, because an RAF racer is a racer who had a slot but did not necessarily fill it. So they're represented by a ghost racer, if you will. And even if the RAF racer wins the whole thing, they can't actually win. So let's say they finish in first all the way to the end, the win will not be given to them. But we will adopt a different solution in the future should this happen again, so that other racers who originally didn't qualify can fill in the spots that RAF racers would have. In this first race though, Numbskull did have a decent sized lead, but then somehow lost it partway through, and Blue Line Racing finished in first, followed by Fast Turd, and it looks like Blue Line knocked over the camera slightly, and I think Numbskull actually finished in fourth, and he did. I'm sure if Numbskull ends up losing to this RAF racer after all this time, there will be plenty of unhappy campers out there, considering what Numbskull had to go through to get here. So if that happens, once again, justice for Numbskull in the comments. Meanwhile, Blue Line Racing, who took that first win, won the previous custom mail-in tournament, and I'm sure they would like to do it again as a back-to-back champion. And right now it's looking like a possibility because they won that first race. They're in first again. And they win twice in a row. They are not undefeated up to this point. But they do have a sweep in possibility right now. They do not have the fastest time at this point, which is still under Flip Gambino's name. But Blue Line just needs one more win here, and they automatically move on to the final round. And it's hard to say who will likely join him at this point, because every other racer right now is tied with 4 points. Which is definitely good for Numbskull after that first race. But now they have to finish in front of both Fast Turd and RAF in order to keep their hopes alive, and it looks like that may happen, because they're almost keeping up with Blue Line right now. In the last turn before the merger, Blue Line is out in front, but he spins around, and Numbskull takes advantage and takes the win. So while Blue Line isn't guaranteed necessarily to move on automatically, it's still looking pretty good, and Numbskull desperately needed that win in order to keep in front of the other 2 racers. And now he has 9 points, while the others only have 5 or 6 respectively. So now Numbskull just gave himself some cushion to increase his odds to move on to the final round alongside Blue Line Racing. Which I'm sure a lot of fans of Numbskull are happy about now, especially with that RAF racer still in this right now. But Blue Line now has the lead in the last heat before the final round, and he's looking to stay that way as long as he can stay straight. And he definitely is. Blue Line Racing is in the final round once again, 2 years in a row, looking to be a back-to-back champion. He does have some major competition, including Numbskull, Arlo, and of course Flip Gambino. So we'll see how that plays out in the final round, which will now begin. This is definitely a nail-biter. No more RAF racers, which I'm sure the comment section will be relieved to know. And now we have 4 entries here. No one is undefeated. All four of them were at one point. Actually, no, Blue Line Racing was close, but not quite. But now Flip Gambino currently has the lead, trying to stay in front of Blue Line Racing, trying to deny him a back-to-back championship. Flip Gambino does sometimes spin around at the last second, which other racers have taken advantage of, but he doesn't do that here. So Flip Gambino has one win already, just 2 more, and he could automatically be the champion in just 3 heats of the final round. He almost gets the fastest time again, but he still has it under his name, so as long as he stays in the lead, he can get the fastest time and the championship. But here we go, heat number 2. Flip Gambino has the edge right now, but Blue Line is right on his tail. Not even a half car length behind. But now as we get into these turns, all 4 are staying relatively close together. In the lane mergers, Arlo and Blue Line are right up against each other, which slowed them both down significantly, while Flip Gambino takes a bigger lead as a result. And now he goes into that last turn, into the final stretch before the finish. He is staying straight once again, almost spun around, but he does finish in first yet again, and it looks like Blue Line might have just barely finished in front of Numbskull again. What time did Flip Gambino get? A 14.86. That's a little bit slower, but he still does have the fastest time. Flip Gambino has 2 wins right now. If he gets first place in this next race, he will automatically be crowned this tournament's champion. Right now, Blue Line is trying to keep that from happening automatically at the very least. He wants this to be a competition until the very end, but around that turn, he lost a lot of speed, and now Flip Gambino has the lead, trying to stay in front so he can get that championship. It's within his sights. And the bigger lead he has, the better odds he will have of getting that championship. He goes around that last stretch. He's going down the hill, across the finish line, and Flip Gambino is the Mario Kart Mail-In Tournament champion. Before the 4th heat even happens, Flip Gambino takes that title. So Blue Line Racing will not be a back-to-back champion, but the fact that they got to the final round in the last video twice in a row is one of the biggest accomplishments I've ever seen. So now it's just a victory lap for Flip Gambino. But the question is, will anyone be able to stop him from getting a sweep in the last round of the Ultimate Finals? These are some of the best racers in the entire competition. So we'll see if anyone can catch him. Right now, going towards that last turn, no one has caught him, but he did fishtail a little bit. Will anyone be able to catch him as a result? Blue Line is trying to, but they both spin around backwards. And Flip Gambino gets a sweep in the last round of the Ultimate Finals. He holds on to the fastest time, and Flip Gambino is your Mario Kart Mail-In Tournament champion. A wonderful attempt by all the other racers, but Flip Gambino will take this. Congratulations to Flip Gambino. Your prize will soon be mailed to you, which will be a $150 Amazon gift card, I believe. But quite the design.